Very important night where we began a new era with 3 new board members, and so let's begin. Yeah, I'd like to ask on that side, I think we have a little bit of room. There's people that are way in the other room. Could we slide in, and let's try to create space so people are out of that doorway back there, over here. Mr. Heron, come on, lead the charge. Let's go wrap around. Let's try to get space so everybody in that back room can join us in the main room. I'm going to say that. Before we have the organizational meeting and appointment of president, vice president, and clerk, I will be presiding over the board for about 10 minutes. So would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Buenas tardes para las personas que van a necesitar los aparatos para interpretación. Creo que ya los hemos repartido a los que los necesitan, pero si no, nos pueden ver allá por las puertas dobles, o creo que también dejamos ahí en la mesa.
At this point, we would like to swear in our 3 new trustees. So if I could have Dr. Jackie Reed, Wendy Sims-Moten, and Laura Capps, why don't you come on down to the floor. And then Dr. Pedro Paz, you're out there somewhere. There you are. Each board member has selected a member of the community to administer the oath. So we're going to have the new board members stand behind the podium and speak into the mic. And I invite Dr. Pedro Paz to administer the oath of office to Dr. Jackie Reed.
Please repeat after me. I, Jacqueline Reed,
I, Jacqueline Reed,
do solemnly swear
that
I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States,
I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution in the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution in the State of California,
and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation
and that I take this freely without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will
well
and faithfully discharge the duties
faithfully discharge the duties
upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Yeah, see right here. I'd like to invite up R.J. Moten to administer the oath to his mother.
What's up, Mom?
Hi,
Please raise your right hand.
I, Wendy Sims-Moten,
Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California
do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California. That I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
And I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
And I will well faithfully discharge the duties on which I'm about to enter. All right.
And now I would like to invite Congresswoman Lois Capps to introduce her daughter Lauren and Alicia.
All right.
Please repeat after me.
I, Laura Capps,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United
and
States
the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I'm about to enter. Thank you.
So the report out of closed session, the board took action to approve the public employee appointments of Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education and interim principal in our district. And you'll hear about that in a minute. Actually, now. So we'll move on to the superintendent's report, and I'm pleased to announce to the community the appointment of Sean Carey as Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Ed. And Sean's been in our district for, Sean, how many years? Decades? 20 years. And Sean is currently the principal at Dos Pueblos High School. She's been a teacher, assistant principal, and now she will be our assistant superintendent. So I'd like to invite Sean to share a few comments, and let's welcome and congratulate her.
Some staging happening.
Stand behind you.
Oh, I love the symbol. My. Well, good evening. Good evening, board members, Superintendent Matsuoka, Dr. Ramirez, Mrs. Jate, and certainly members of the community. First, I'd like to congratulate and welcome our new board members. Your commitment to the students and staff of our community is an inspiration, and I look forward to serving with you. Mrs. Parker, I'm especially grateful for your ongoing service and for the continuity and leadership that you will provide during a time of even more transition than usual. Tonight, I'm honored to accept the position of Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education for the Santa Barbara Unified School District. In this role, I plan to operate as both a shepherd and a captain, caring for and supporting our 8 distinguished secondary school sites even as I help to set and navigate a course that will yield college and career readiness for all our district's graduates. I feel fortunate to have been prepared for this role through varied experiences in our local schools, from my first days as a para-educator at Santa Barbara High School, to my student teaching assignments at Santa Barbara Junior High and San Marcos High Schools, and to my nearly 20 years in the roles of teacher and administrator at Dos Pueblos High School. I'm especially indebted to my predecessor, Dr. Ben Drotti, whose accomplishments and leadership example have undoubtedly laid the foundation for continuing to improve our practices and to increase accountability for ensuring access and success for all students. I look forward to collaborating with the impressive team of leaders already in place in our district, most of whom I'm deeply familiar with from our work to date as colleagues. And this is a not so subtle hint that I need to do some wardrobe balancing, so help me out. I need a few more colors in my closet, I think. As I begin this new chapter, I do want to acknowledge the gifts that have been bestowed on me by one site in particular. The staff, students, and families of Dos Pueblos High School have cultivated in me the values that I will bring to the role of assistant superintendent. Foremost among them, the precept that excellence and equity are intertwined. I'm so pleased that Mr. Bill Woodard, who has proven to be the most effective and reliable assistant principal a school leader could have, will in an interim capacity step up to the helm of such a uniquely high-achieving and dynamic school community. And finally, I want to recognize the ongoing inspiration and steadfastness of my immediate family members who are in attendance tonight, my partner Carola, and our children Claire and Amelia and Catalina. Many sacrifices are made by the families of educators and oftentimes especially school leaders, and I'm so grateful for your love and support. So once again to the board and the selection committee, I want to say I appreciate the confidence that you've shown in me and in my experience and my abilities. Please know that you can rely on my full commitment to leverage the role of assistant superintendent to sustain a caring and culturally proficient district community and to optimize learning outcomes for adults and students alike. Thank you.
And if I could jump in here, Mr. Matsuoka, and just say congratulations on behalf of the board. I think I can say on everybody's part that we have the deepest respect for the work that you have done. We appreciate all your junior high and high school principal colleagues that are here who know you so well and are here to support you in your new role. And I think Dr. Drotti obviously had very big shoes to fill in multiple ways, but I absolutely am confident, we're all confident that you'll be great. So thank you and welcome and apologies to Dos Pueblos, but also congratulations to Dos Pueblos, as we'll hear more about that shortly.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Got it. Thanks.
So as Sean mentioned, with the change mid-year, we need to find an interim principal, and we searched far and wide. It was like 2 doors down the hallway. So I'm pleased to introduce Bill Woodard as interim principal at Dos Pueblos High School, and welcome, Bill.
As usual, I'm following Sean. Good evening, members of the board, Mr. Matsuoka, Dr. Ramirez, Ms. Chate, and community. Good evening. I wanted to thank you for the trust and the honor of serving, the privilege of serving as interim principal at Dos Pueblos High School. I would be remiss without taking a moment to say how proud I am of this woman right here. That she's been selected to serve as Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education In my 18 years of education, I can sincerely say that there is nobody I have more respect and admiration for than Sean. Her integrity, her passion for equity and inclusion, her willingness to listen, and most of all, her unwavering determination to not simply manage, but to lead, will make her an outstanding district administrator. I couldn't have learned under a better model. DP is a source of tremendous community pride, as you all know, with world-renowned programs, outstanding parent support, and a talented, caring faculty that embraces innovation. At school, I've been fortunate to serve in a number of roles: teacher, coach, and administrator. And I embrace our student-centered culture. I lived it. I know it. And it is now my honor and my responsibility to help lead the hard but vitally important work to which that we at DP have been steadfastly committed. That as we increase access to and success in all the outstanding programs and opportunities afforded to students at Dos Pueblos, we make sure that that's done every single day. From IB to the DPEA, from the arts to athletics, we want all students to know that our programs belong to all students from all backgrounds. And so when we witnessed last year a first-generation college-bound avid student who's sitting somewhere in here, I saw her earlier, lead her team to the California State Mock Trial Championship. And when we see that last year, as more students than ever took AP classes and took AP exams, not only did our number of students who passed those exams increase, but our total percentage went up as well. We see the evidence that DPHS's tradition of excellence will only grow in the coming years if we work hard to reach every child, every chance, every day. I'm so excited that I get to lead the next stage of this work. Thank you for the opportunity, and go Chargers.
And again, thank you, Mr. Woodard, and I think it made us all feel better about stealing Sean to the district office, knowing that you would be there to make sure everything kept running smoothly this year. So thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.
Congratulations, leaders. We now move on to public comment, and we have 2 public comment speaker cards. First, sorry, board comments first. Any board comments or correspondence?
I have been told I have to be very brief, but I just would like to say that I'm thrilled to be here, but I just want to acknowledge the appointment of Sean Carey as Assistant Secondary Superintendent, that I truly support the choice, and I'm looking forward to working with her and Mr. Bill Woodward for the work that he will be continuing to do at Dos Pueblos, so we don't have to worry that she steps away, that he will take over that helm. So, and thank you for this opportunity to be on the board.
We have this thing in the grant-making committee where if someone has said exactly what you want to say, you just do this. So we're going to do that. But I am absolutely excited and honored to be here, and I expect this room to be full all the time, not just tonight. As you could hear, as you came in, we had a lot of music. So we really want this to be an engaging process. We're excited to be here, and I know I'm excited to be here, and we look forward to working hard and committing to the students, and welcome to Sean and Bill as well.
Just briefly, I'd like to echo the thanks for all of you being here. Our job is to be citizen representatives of all of you, so it's so wonderful that this room is so packed with all of your faces and your intents and your hopes, because that's what we hope to exemplify up here on the board for you. Thank you.
And Ms. Capps, sometimes you'll see that there are speaker slips that get put at the end. If you always want to pass them up when you get a chance.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have two speaker cards that are on items that are not on the agenda. So I'd like to invite Christy Stillwell to come to the podium, and you will have 3 minutes to address the board.
Good evening, everybody. It's so nice to see the room so full. I wanted to say for our departing school board members that are here tonight, I wanted to thank you for bringing your passion, your intellect, your insight, your experience, and resources to ensure the best education possible for our students. I hope that our paths will continue to cross. A special thank you for your renewed support of What is Love. With the new MOU in place, this will allow us to continue conversations with our students in the secondary schools about healthy dating and connect students who are disengaged from learning because of dating abuse to our programming. So thank you very much for signing that last session and continuing to support our work. For our new school board members, welcome, and thank you so much for volunteering to serve our teachers, students, parents, and community. More than ever, we need big hearts and big voice in our community right now. I appreciate your time and your input, and I look forward to getting to know you better. Thank you.
Next, it's, I think, Cynthia Diaz, who wants to speak about special education.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Cynthia Diaz, and my daughter Nicole Diaz is a 7th grader at the regional program at Goleta Valley Junior High. This program was newly acquired by the Santa Barbara School District this year, and it is my recollection that when the take-back of the program was being decided this past spring, the board recommended that a formal update be given about 6 to 8 weeks into the school year. If my memory serves me correctly, there were concerns expressed by 2 of the outgoing board members. I was hoping the update will address these concerns and any others that might have arisen at the beginning of the school year. It is now December, and we have several new board members who might not be aware of the history of this program and the needs of these students. I am hoping that at the next board meeting, we be given the update that was recommended in the spring so that our new board members and the family members of these students be kept informed as to the needs of the fragile population that this program serves. And again, I'm just representing each one of the parents of this new program at Goleta Junior High. Thank you very much.
That concludes public comment on items not on the agenda. We now move to acceptance of donations. Can I get a motion to accept the donations for December 13th, 2016?
I move to accept the donations December 13th.
Is there a second? Motion and second. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We now move on to the annual organization meeting. This is where the board will select president, vice president, and clerk. So is there a motion for a board member to serve as president of the governing board?
I make a motion that Kate Parker serve as president of the board for the school year.
I second.
Motion and second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, Ms. President.
Thank you.
All right, so let's move on now, and we will take, we need to nominate a vice president of the board. Is there a motion?
I move to appoint Jacqueline Reed as vice president of the board.
I accept.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Capps and a second by Ms. Sims Moten. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that motion passes unanimously, and it'll be a 4-0 vote until sometime in the future. We also now need a clerk of the board. This is a position that we have put into place at our last meeting, and so is there a nomination for clerk of the board? Ms. Reed?
I'd like to make a nomination for Ms. Sims Moten to be the clerk of the board.
I accept.
And is there a second?
I second the motion.
All right, so a motion by Dr. Reed and a second by Ms. Capps. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously. That moves us off of the election of the officers to a designation of secretary to the Board of Education. That is our superintendent typically, and so I need a motion to designate Mr. Matsuoka as secretary to the Board of Education.
I make a motion that we designate Superintendent Matsuoka to secretary. Okay.
I second the motion.
Great. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that passes unanimously. Moving on to the designation of date and time of regularly scheduled board meetings through June 30th, 2018. You can see the list up on the screen now. Typically, it is the second and fourth Tuesday of each month, commencing at 6:30. We do have a few exceptions. One is March 14th, 2017, because of the spring break. And that also, we would like to shift to April 4th, the first Tuesday of the month, and then the last Tuesday of the month in April because of the spring break and the way it falls in 2017. In July, there's one meeting only, November, one meeting only because of Thanksgiving, and then December, one meeting only. And also, please note that we are, for the first time, actually scheduling out to the end of the school year of 2018, so that we can have the dates up for a full school year instead of having to break in the middle of the year the way we've been doing. So are there any issues with any of these dates? Nope. All right. Well, yes.
All right, so I move to approve the designation of the date and time of regularly scheduled board meetings through June 30th, 2018, and that the second and fourth Tuesday of each month commencing at 6:30 p.m. have been designated as the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Education, and we have some exceptions.
With a listed exceptions.
With a list of exceptions.
Great.
Second.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that passes unanimously. Great. Now we need an appointment to of a representative and then an alternate to elect members of the Santa Barbara County Committee on School District Organization. I'll tell you, if any of you are interested in this, that it meets almost never. So this is just typically if boundary issues come up. Every now and then there's a request to shift a boundary line, or so it's very rare. And Mr. Matsuoka, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
I would expect in Santa Barbara County that it would be very rare. So it's an assignment you want to volunteer for.
So it's fine to nominate to say, yes, I'd like to do this, and then we'll make a motion on it. But anybody interested? Anybody willing to take this on?
Sure, I'll take it on.
All right, so Ms. Capps will take that on. Anybody willing to be the alternate for the even more rare occasion?
I'll be the alternate.
All right, and Dr. Reed, so can I have, I'll go ahead and make the motion that Ms. Capps be the representative and Dr. Reed be the alternate to the Santa Barbara County Committee on School District Organization. If I could have a second on that?
I second that.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and that passes unanimously. And finally, we're not going to take a vote on the next section. These are board member committee appointments. I want to note, there's a number, these are mostly sort of ad hoc committees. And a number of them meet once a month, some more rarely than that, but none meet more than once a month. And I will note that we are down a board member. And so this is, the committees typically are served by 5 board members, not 4. So it's also fine if we, at this time, need to leave 2 or 3 empty. I'll jump in since I'm coming from being on the board. The one that I the two that I've been sitting on. One is Santa Barbara County School Boards Association. That's a monthly meeting with county board members that takes place in Buellton. At some point, I would like to transition off that, but I think that maybe for the coming year, I'd like to continue with that, if board members are okay with it. The other one is the Santa Barbara Education Foundation. I have served on that for a couple of years at this point, and I think it's probably appropriate if I step off at this time. I know that Dr. Reed, you've been intimately involved with that Education Foundation, and I don't know if that's something you'd be interested in taking on as a board rep to that. But for now, with everybody's agreement, I would like to stick on Santa Barbara County School Boards Association, and then maybe you can chime in with what you're interested in.
Yeah, just jump in.
Yeah, if you want to just raise your hand first, and then I will acknowledge you, and then you can tell me. So, you want to raise your?
Sure. So
Okay.
let's see, I'm interested in the Wellness Committee and the Sustainability Committee and Adelante Charter School Committee. Let's see. I think that's
Pace
it.
yourself.
Yeah, I think that about covers it.
Okay, and anybody, any objections to those? Anybody? No? Okay, then Dr. Reed?
Well, first of all, I really have worked intimately with the Santa Barbara Education Foundation, but I want to ensure that if someone here would like to participate on that committee, I'm happy to relinquish that. So I'm opening it up. But I have been past board president, so I think they have to stick with me anyway for a while. So, it would be nice to have new blood too. I am very interested in the Staff and Special Education Parent Advisory Committee. And I don't want to take anything from what.
There's two there. So, yeah, you're fine.
So, would anyone like the Santa Barbara Education Foundation?
No, you got it, girl.
All right, so I would love to be on the committee for the Santa Barbara Education Foundation and the Staff for Special Education Parent Advisory Committee.
Okay.
And Ms. Simmons-Moten.
Raise my hand for the point of order. I'd like to serve on the Graduation Requirements Committee, as well as the South Coast Youth Gang and Task Force Leadership Council.
What about the Audit Committee?
Audit Committee, by default, no, the Audit Committee is fine, yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah. All right, then I'm
She
up.
can do that. So we do have at least one that's still sitting open, but I think it's fine to leave that open until our new member joins us, whoever that may be in the future. And as it stands, we have Sims-Moten for Audit and Graduation Requirement Committee and South Coast Task Force on Youth Safety, Reed for the Staff Special Education Parent Advisory Committee, and Santa Barbara Education Foundation, CAPS for Sustainability and Wellness, and also for Adelante Charter School, and then Parker for the Santa Barbara County School Boards Association. All right. Let's move on to the consent agenda. So we're in section F of the agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that board members need to pull? For later. If not, can I have a motion to pass the consent agenda?
I would like to make a motion to pass the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, motion by Dr. Reed, second by Ms. Sims-Moten. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that passes unanimously. We're now moving on to the action agenda, and first up, we have approval of resolution in support of our students. Ms. Kiani is our staff person on this, and is Ms. Kiani here? Oh, she's going around. She's going to fight her way forward.
Let's ask a question. Where'd she go? Was she here? Oh, maybe she could.
Here she comes.
I can step in. Oh, there she is.
All right. Good evening, Board. Shall I go on ahead? Okay. This is resolution number 2016/2017-22. 20 years ago, many voices in our community came together to, in a public forum, to define a vision of diversity and work towards solutions and set goals for the kind of school district and community that we wanted to become. What was apparent then and remains unchanged today is that while the delivery of high-quality instruction is our daily focus, learning must take place in a respectful environment where every student feels valued, safe, and heard. The Santa Barbara Unified School District Board of Education believes that the physical safety and emotional well-being of all children and families in our district is critical to students being able to achieve and thrive. Sadly, the highly charged negative discourse taking place at the national level is being felt locally in our schools. Administrators and teachers have shared the real everyday impact that fear is having in our classrooms. Federal law guarantees all children, the right to a free K-12 public education, including children who were brought to the United States without legal status. Currently, undocumented students are not alone in their fears. The November election was polarizing for students as well as adults. As teachers can attest, students who identify as LGBTQ, female, disabled, Muslim, or as a person of color, view the recent election through a different lens than others whose point of view differs and whose vote should be equally respected. While we are going through a contentious political period, our nation has gone through tumultuous times in the past, and ultimately we will come together. Our children and our community depend on it. Whereas our ongoing commitment to our community's children is that their schools are a safe place for them and their families, no matter their immigration status, a place where words and actions cannot and should not harm who they are, a place where each day provides them the opportunity to work with other students and adults so that each one of them can continue to mature and develop into outstanding leaders and contributors to the community. A place where they are cared for by adults and peers who listen to their needs, understand who they are, and support what they want to become. Whereas as a school district community, we stand together and continually work to create a positive culture where every person is respected and values, an environment where rich dialogue is encouraged amongst our students and staff, but the discourse does not harm a person's identity or well-being, where no election result changes our commitment to all of our students, and that our students can depend on district staff to model and maintain an environment where they can flourish. Whereas as a board, we invite parents, neighbors, and those committed to supporting our community's children to work collaboratively with us as we continue to empower them to reach their full potential as responsible, ethical, and productive citizens in a diverse and changing world. Therefore, let it be resolved that as a school district, we will continue to welcome and support children from all backgrounds, including those from undocumented families, and will protect the confidentiality of information we have about our students and families, and will keep immigration authorities off our campuses to the fullest extent provided by law. That's the end of Thank you, Ms. Kiani. We do have some suggested revisions to the language from members of the public, and we also have a lot of comment on this. This came up as a suggestion for the new board to consider by one of our outgoing board members, newly sworn in State Assembly member Monique Limon. I know, Ms. Kiani, you worked really hard on getting the language just just right with the idea that this was a draft and that's something that we can certainly work on even now. So I'd like to go ahead and take public comment before we talk. And if Dr. Reed, you'd be willing to list off 3 names so that you're ready to go, that you know that you're going to come up. Normally we allow 3 minutes for public comment, but because of the number that we have, I'm going to need to reduce that amount. So Ms. Jate will be changing that up, so we'll have 2 minutes, up to 2 minutes to speak. And then hopefully either Dr. Reed or myself will remember to give you a 30-second warning. Although your light will turn yellow up there, so you'll know that your time is coming to an end, and we want to respect everybody's time. So with that, Dr. Reed.
All right, thank you. The first 3, Jennifer Freed. We have Katia Baradas, and please forgive me if I mispronounce your name. And Eder Gaina Macedo.
Thank you for the honor to speak to you tonight and to the community for showing up. I'm Dr. Jennifer Freed. I'm the co-executive director of AHA, and I'm here to support the AHA Peace Builders. We have quite a number that are going to speak. They're going to be very brief because it's a school night and they want to get to studying. But I wanted you to know that 150 AHA Peace Builders were trained for 8 hours and then have been part of a school club where every single day their job is to make the school a safe and welcoming place for every student. So this is right on target, this resolution, and they are very eager to tell you about some of the hate speech that they've already witnessed or experienced and why this resolution right now could not be more important. And we thank you so much for your devoted service and presenting this to our community. Thank you.
We had Eder? No, not that. Oh,
Yes.
sorry. Katia. Katia.
I was thinking if I need a stool or I need to bring this down. I think I got it. Well, hi. Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Katia Barradas. I came here to ask you for help. I'm actually a parent at Cleveland School. My son is 12 years old, and I am actually the president of the PTA for the school. I like you guys, have to set up meetings for field trips, for where we're going to spend the money and how am I going to get the money for the school. This just happened, really dramatic. And it's really sad in my heart. And me and my son, it's like, Mom, help. When the elections came along, I drove into the school. In the morning, my son's like, Mom, what happened? I told him what happened. He goes, Mom, are we moving to Canada? I'm like, no, we're not moving to Canada. We're staying here. We're going to fight. When I drove into school, because the kids already know me, they're like, Ms. Barradas, so what's going to happen? Are my parents going to be okay at home? Are they going to be okay? Should I stay at school? Should I go home? What's going on? Honestly, I didn't have any response for them. I mean, I couldn't. I don't know if I was going to give them the right answer, not the right answer. And that was like, I'm not the parent. But I would ask for you guys to please help to make our schools a safe zone, to let our kids go into school and worry about the grades, to worry about the grades and worry about going to college, applying to university, graduating from junior high. What junior high am I going to? I don't want to have my PTA meeting next in January and to decide what's going to happen with the parents. So please help us to make our school a safe zone, and every school, just not our school, every school, because we want our kids to succeed. And if this doesn't make it safe, they're not going to do it. Thank you, and I ask for your help. Thank you.
Imagine being a 14-year-old. At that age, you're told you can do anything you want to be, a doctor, a lawyer, maybe even an astronaut. But life for an undocumented youth is much different, always fearing deportation and being separated from your family. Good evening, board members. My name is Eder Gaona Macedo. I am the product of the Santa Barbara Unified School District, the Executive Director of Future Leaders of America, and this is my story. Like all 65,000 undocumented youth who graduate from high school every year, I too came to this country undocumented. Like all undocumented youth, I hid my immigration status to avoid being targeted. Thanks to programs like Future Leaders, I was able to enroll to UCLA, and just 2 years ago, I received my master's from Columbia. Who would have ever thought that this one boy from Tepo Chica, Mexico, would ever have a degree from Columbia? I know I didn't. And for all of you still wondering, I have my citizenship now. So school board members, let's continue promoting safe zones for all students regardless of their immigration status. Let's show our community that we are tolerant and willing to help out our marginalized communities. Board, please support this resolution that calls for student safety and for our schools to be a place of learning, not anxiety or fear. Thank you.
The next three names, we have Gustavo Muratalla. Okay, I'm sorry. Gustavo Muratalla, Cindy Diaz, and Brittany Sagachi.
Okay.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Gustavo Muratalla. I'm speaking on behalf of Future Leaders of America, and I just wanted to share with you guys because I'm asking for you guys' help too, because I don't know if you guys heard about the walkouts that happened a couple of weeks ago, and I just remember the vibe going at school after the election changed, and it was more quieter, there was a lot of tension, like everyone could feel it. It was really quiet. And like walking to class, no one was really talking. Everyone was just like, let's just go to class. And I remember that day when I walked out because I wanted to see what was going on in my community. I wanted to help bring my community together. I wanted to help because like the walkout wasn't just a protest for Donald Trump being president. It was to bring people together, to see what they're feeling, to share and, come together as one. And I know like, being undocumented student is really hard. I'm personally not undocumented. For my friends who they were, for the fear of being undocumented, they were fearing that they couldn't participate in these events. They can't participate in the events I partake because they have the fear that if they go to these events, they're going to get deported and their family's not going to know, or maybe their whole family is going to get deported. And it's really struggling to see how they're more worried about if they're gonna stay here than if applying for a college to get their PhD or to get even their bachelor's or maybe even going to CC. And it's a really to me it's a very hard touching topic because I have a lot of friends that are undocumented, but I can't like tell them to like join me because it's for them it's really hard. So I ask you for your help. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Cindy Diaz, ASB Vice President of Dos Pueblos High School and Chair of Publicity for the Santa Barbara Youth Council. I'd like to start off by thanking Mrs. Parker for meeting with my peers and I and hearing our concerns, a lot of which the resolution addresses. I'd also like to state that the Santa Barbara Youth Council does support this resolution. However, as an individual, I do raise one question to the specifics of this resolution. It states that rich dialogue is encouraged among staff and students, and in my opinion, that's not true. My entire time at Dos Pueblos High School, teachers have been discouraged, in fact instructed to refrain from voicing their beliefs and political views. And in the contrary, when students and teachers do choose to voice their opinion, it often comes off as very offensive, and it can even lead to violence. I don't see rich dialogue occurring, but I know how crucial and important it is. By doing so, students will hear from different point of views and gain understanding and respect. This will ultimately lead to a safe environment, one in which every student can flourish. So my question is, how can we plan to ignite rich dialogue in a respectful manner? And my suggestion is to better integrate peace builders into our schools, to have a more respectful and safe environment for all of our students. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Brittany Seguachi, and I'm an AHA Peace Builder, and I've heard mean comments thrown at people for their political views. Thank you.
Okay, we have three more: Bailey Holland, Vidi Barrera, and Brandy Lentini.
Hello, I'm Bailey Holland. I'm a peace builder at Santa Barbara High School. And at my school, I've heard students telling other students of color that now it's time for them to go back home. So if you could please pass this resolution so we can have a safe space for all students at the school.
Good evening, my name is Viridiana, and I'm a current peace builder at Santa Barbara High School. A rude or mean comment that I've heard during school was one day after the election, I heard a fellow student say, now that Trump has been elected, there's going to be more empty seats in the classrooms, and me as an undocumented student, it struck a lot of fear in my heart, and I'm asking you to please pass this resolution. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brandy Lentini. I'm a peace builder. From this election, a few things that I have witnessed personally is the groping of female and male students by their peers. And I'm going to sing a little song for you guys. Really brief. It'll be fast. I'm gonna do it.
Seconds.
That was lovely, Ms. Lentini, and apparently Ms. Sims-Moten speaks and the world listens because she insisted that there would be music at our meetings. So, and no pressure on the rest of you. If you do have that kind of voice, take it on. Otherwise, maybe not, but thank you.
Yes, definitely a hard act to follow, but in the future, we look forward to more music and more songs. Josh Hurd, Jose Ibarra, and Marcus Lopez.
Hey, y'all. I'm Josh, and I'm a senior at San Marcos High School. And after the election, there was a lot more hate speech that I've seen, especially anti-Semitic and heterosexist language, and just slurs being thrown around nonchalantly. So I please urge you to pass this resolution. It's very important. Thank you.
My name is Marcus Lopez. I'm the chairman of the Barreno Chumash Tribal Council. We live in a society that created genocide in California for California Indian populations. This has been ignored for too long. The present-day hate speech, as indicated in your resolution, is sadly true. We create safe spaces in our educational institutions to foster cooperation and proper social education. Ethnic studies curriculum is so badly needed. Chumash families have fought in the First World War and the Second World War to fight against fascism and for freedom here in the United States. And fascism breeds because of society's created scapegoats for its social ills. You indicate in your resolution about the atmosphere in our schools. Free speech is one thing and hate speech is another. Anti-gay, anti-women, anti-immigration, anti-black, anti-native, or any attacks on the segments of our school population and community cannot be tolerated. Safe spaces in our elementary, secondary, and high schools need to be established in which counselors, staff, and teachers get the proper social and cultural counseling. Students need spaces in these institutions that not only feel safe, but which will protect them against predators. Predators in all its forms, whether it be ICE or individuals of other students on our campus. I support this resolution as a first step in defending our students by providing safe campus from all laws and social elements that use hate and domination to create fear and hostility. We must not only come to the defense of all of our students, we accomplish this by implementing curriculum that speaks to the present situation. Ethnic studies now, for these are the times that demand it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Jose. I'm a AHA Peace Builder at Santa Barbara High School. Even before the election, I've already witnessed and heard a teacher refer to women as wenches on multiple occasions. That's not what I consider a safe space, so please support the resolution.
Three more speakers: Les Molly, Lopez, Olivia Carranza, and Monique Limon.
Hello, thank you for having us here. I would like to remind, my name is Cosmali Lopez. I'm a sophomore at Santa Barbara High School, a member of the Ethnic Studies Now Coalition. I would like to remind our school board that the students cannot vote, and thus we have voted with our actions in both the walkout and all the amazing students here today to support this resolution. Ethnic Studies Now supports this resolution. We stand in solidarity with women, LGBT community, Muslims, people of color, and undocumented immigrants. We would like to even suggest that we hope this stance and active, positive motion forward continues with Ethnic Studies Now curriculum, as well as increased student involvement within the school board, and thus creating a community of social justice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Olivia Carranza, and I'm a parent. I have 3 teenagers right now. And I'm currently a board member with Future Leaders of America, and also I'm a board member with Santa Barbara Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I've been involved with the school district for many, many years. Different schools like Brandon School, Goleta Valley, La Colina, Dos Pueblos, Bishop Diego, Santa Barbara City College as well. I've been participated in different committees like ELAC, DLAC, Site Council, different parenting classes in the Santa Barbara School District. And I have learned so much. And after the election, I have experienced what I thought we were changing. I experienced that our youth and our parents, which all through these years, I have seen how they want to become these exceptional leaders. And we have been working so hard with many committees, many schools, many people, some of you here present. And I have experienced how they were so fearful. Parents didn't know what to do, didn't know what to talk to their kids about. The youth didn't know where to go, didn't know what to do, didn't know what to expect. We still don't know what to expect. We are so unsafe. We are so fearful. And I need you guys to just, whenever you take a look at our children, think of your children. How would you like to be separated from them? How would you like that? I don't think you would like that. So please support this resolution. We are all one. Thank you.
Good evening, board. Congratulations to the new members, to our new Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Schools and our new principal as well. Monique Limon, first and foremost, former board member. I'm glad to see that this resolution is on the agenda. And I also want to put a little bit of context into what we're asking. I think that this isn't just approving words tonight. I think it's more meaningful than that. But I also think that what's really, really important to acknowledge is that this is upholding our Constitution of the United States, particularly the 14th Amendment, which allows every single student to come to our K-12 schools, public schools, and get a free quality education. And I think that that's really what's at stake here. You all, three of you took you took your oath tonight, and in those words, it was about reaffirming our position to uphold the Constitution of the United States. There's also legal cases, Plyler versus Doe, that support this work. So I wanted to make sure that folks understand that the context isn't just about putting words on a piece of paper. Clearly, we have heard from students tonight and community members that this alone will not create the safe spaces that we absolutely need in order to provide spaces to teach and for our students to learn. This is about teaching and learning. So I do think that additional work is going to be needed in order to create those spaces. I also want to acknowledge those community agencies that are here tonight, because I don't believe that the school district can do it alone. I think we have AHA here, we have Future Leaders of America here, who I'm missing, I saw ADSUM, and we have the Fund for Santa Barbara, great agencies that can help and support the work so that the school district isn't doing it alone, and that we're leveraging on partnerships and relationships in order to move this one step forward. Thank you for your time, and I do look forward to hearing you approve this resolution.
We have one more speaker, Gerardo Sanchez.
Buenas noches. Mi nombre es Gerardo Sánchez y les agradezco que presten sus oídos a escucharnos. De antemano les pido una disculpa por no poderles decir esto en el idioma que es el inglés.
Sí.
Okay. Mi razón por la que estoy aquí es porque yo soy padre de 3 hijos. A mí me preocupa mucho lo que de ellos vaya a ser en el futuro. Entonces, yo les pido con el corazón que apoyen esta enmienda para poder no negarles un mejor futuro a mis hijos. Entonces, de favor les pido que consideren esto. Se los agradezco. Gracias.
My name is Gerardo Sanchez, and I thank you for allowing us to come before you. I apologize for not being able to give my message in English, but I just wanted to let you know that I have 3 kids, and I'm very concerned about their future. And so I ask you to approve this resolution. With all my heart, I would like to ask you to approve this resolution, and thank you very much.
All right, board members, I do have some suggested revisions for the language that I'd like to share with you before we go ahead and have board discussion. And this comes from, mostly from the student safety group, so I thank you for the work that you did in thinking this through. If we are looking at paragraph 2, and Ms. Kiani, I can get this language to you also later. But essentially, the underlined line there, administrators and teachers have shared. I'd like to propose changing that to administrators, comma, teachers and students have shared. And in the third paragraph where it says, as teachers can attest, to change that also to add students, as teachers and students can attest, students who identify as, and keep the rest of that the same. And then moving down to the 5th paragraph, where it says, and now I've lost where the number 5 is. Are you touching it, Mr. Rouse? Okay, thank you. Where it says a safe place no matter their immigration status, so the end of that first line, to add in no matter their immigration, comma, religious, comma, gender, comma, and ability status. So those are the suggested revisions, and I invite board comments, discussion, any further revisions. Anybody want to raise their hand? Dr. Reed.
I was really excited when I heard about this resolution that Monique Limon had put forward at the last board meeting, and thank you, Barbara Kiani, for putting it together, the draft. I just have to speak from the heart right now at the moment, and I am proud to be a part of this board to bring forward the resolution potentially of our students. I believe strongly that it's necessary to affirm that we are committed to all of our students and their families, and that we will provide a safe educational space no matter the student's immigration status or whether one identifies as LGBTQ, female, Muslim, a person of color, or persons with disabilities, or any other identity. I look forward to the opportunity to ensure that all students reach their fullest potential as responsible, ethical, and productive citizens in our 21st century global world. Thank you.
Ms. Sims-Martin.
I'd like to first again thank you for coming here and let us hear your voice, and I fully, and as Dr. Rita said, so proud to be a part of this board that encompasses all and everyone and their voices. I just wanted to say also that the speaker earlier talked about you've got to have a heart. You have to have the heart in order to understand each other, the differences, to be able to hear those differences, to kind of minimize that distraction or that distraction in between two conversations. But also I think it's important for us to have courage to be able to do it in the face of everything else when it feels like there's so much for or against you. It's like I have to be courageous, I have to be bold, and I have to be fierce, and I have to be committed every day to talk about everybody deserves the safe space to be here. So again, I am so proud of your student voices that are here saying loud. That's important. We always say we want to have the student voice, and that's very evident in this resolution and as you are here today. So thank you for doing that, and I'm again proud to be in your community as well.
Ms. Katz?
Thank you all for being here, and I know we are all very touched by your comments and your show of support for our schools by taking the time to being here. It was so meaningful for us as new members to have this be one of the first actions that we take in our careers here as in this new role and the capacity. And for the point that Monique Limon made, so close, I mean, the symbolism of that, we just took this oath to uphold the Constitution, and here we are doing what we can to do that, to carry that out. So my request is, if you can help us continue to do that going forward, that it breaks my heart that students who already feel fear every day are feeling more fear. It's hard to think about. It's hard to think about. There's so many challenges already, and so if you're fearful for your own safety, on top of being the age that you are and all the pressures and the testing and everything else that goes into being at the stage of life that you are, and so to have additional fear. Now, I hope that this can be somewhat healing, but I also know that these are words. And so I look to the groups that are here and to you students who are here to work with us. You have a very supportive board here, as I can surmise from the comments. So to have this not be sort of the end and we sort of think, oh, good, we passed that and now we're good. We know we need to really work hard each and every day. So if you can help us by keeping us in touch with what's happening and how your classrooms, what's going on, just the way that you did today, and maybe some more concrete ideas will come from that. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to so many of you who came out to speak, and thanks to those of you who reached out to me in particular ahead of time and gave me input and feedback. It really had a tremendous impact on me as a person, but foremost as a board member in this situation. I will do this, as Ms. Sims-Moten would say. I agree with everything that my fellow board members have said. I do also want to tie back to what Ms. Limon had to say, though, that it is really important that we have a framework as we move forward with making sure that what we say here tonight is actually happening on our school campuses. And so you need to hold us accountable for that. But I know that Mr. Matsuoka will be taking what we hopefully pass here and moving forward with it in terms of actions in the community. And I don't know, Mr. Matsuoka, if there's anything you wanted to add to that.
I feel that there's a statement or a document that needs to go to our staff about how to handle ourselves in the coming weeks and months. And it's a challenging spot for our teachers, presenting a safe space. And our teachers need some guidance, not explicit directions, but I am hearing from my colleagues across the state that every district's facing this challenge. So I'm going to do some thinking and writing. We'll work with our leaders, and we need to get some advice and counsel out to all of our staff. I look ahead to January. I think about the inauguration of a president and how that's going to reawaken some of our challenges. So we look forward to working with all of you. This is a community need, and so thank you for trusting us with that primary place of being a safe place.
All right, board members, there's a resolution with some amended language. I don't know if anybody wants to get a motion on the table.
Sure, I move to approve the resolution with the amended language in support of our students.
And I second it.
All right, that was a motion made by Ms. Capps, seconded by Dr. Reed. Is there any further discussion on this item?
Only one thing is that I really do hope, as my partners in crime here, is that you students come back and share with us. We want, sing to us. We want to see you here. We want to see you engaged. We want you engaged, and we want to support all of you. So thank you for coming tonight.
All right, with that, and thank you. This is a beautiful site. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And with that, this resolution passes unanimously. I'm going to go ahead. fellow board members, I wish it were always this joyful. I'm going to go ahead and call a 2-minute break. I know that many of you need to go back and get your homework done and have other things to do tonight, so we'll have a 2-minute break. Thank you. And reconvene the meeting, moving on with our action agenda item. I will note at this point that we're running about 20 minutes behind schedule, and so I will be keeping an eye on that and the pacing as we go along. So next up is item G2. This is the approval of agreement with KNN Public Finance for financial advisory consulting services, and that's Ms. Jete.
Thank you very much. Again, we start talking financial, and we lose our crowd.
So sorry.
It's starting to get a little.
If you sing, Ms. Jete, that might change.
No, you want to clear the rest of the room, go ahead and let me sing. So when putting together our bond program, assembling a great team is imperative, and Joanna Bose from KNN is our financial advisor, and she's here tonight so that you could meet her, because the board will be hearing her name and seeing her around quite a bit now that our community has passed $193 million worth of bonds. So we're here to welcome Joanna Bose.
Ms. Bose, do you want to go ahead and come up to the podium so that members of the public who are not with us can actually see you and grab you at any time?
So the staff recommends the board approval for the contract of the financial advisory service with KNN Public Finance.
Thank you. Board members, any comments or questions? Thank you, Ms. Bose. May I have a motion?
I would like to make a motion for the approval of the agreement with KNN Public Finance for financial advisory consulting services.
Second.
All right, the motion was made by Dr. Reed, seconded by Ms. Sims-Moten. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that passes unanimously. Thank you, and here's to a low-cost few years. Next up is item G3, approval of bond council agreement with Stradling, Yoka, Carlson, and Routh. Ms. Jete?
Thank you very much. Another important player of our team is our bond counsel, Dave Casanoka. When I first sold the first bonds way back when as an assistant superintendent of business services, David went through the stack of documents after we sold the bonds and went page by page, word by word, and ran them through and brought them down to layman terms and made me understand the documents, and I really appreciate that. Both Joanna and David have been really great about that. But now I'm a pro, so I don't need you, David. No. Just kidding, just kidding. So I am here. So David, that's David Casanoka.
Would you like to go ahead and come on up to the podium?
So staff recommends the board approval for bond council agreement with Stradling, Yoka, Carlson, and Ralph.
Any comments or questions? No, thank you. And how exactly do you pronounce your firm's name?
Well, they're right here down the street on Santa Barbara, Stradling, Yoka, Carlson, and Roth.
Stradling. Okay, thank you. May I have a motion to approve this?
Be some volume, right? I make a motion to approve the agreement with Stradling, Yoka, and Carlson, and Routh.
And is there a second?
I second that motion.
Right, made by Ms. Sims-Moten and seconded by Ms. Capps. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And it passes unanimously. Thank you.
Can I add a comment here?
Mm-hmm.
So David and I have worked together for, 11, 12 years. It's been a long time. So I've worked with him in 2 other districts. And as far as bond counsel, I would say there is no better counsel in the state. So he knows his stuff. So it's good to see you again, David.
Great. Next up is item G4, adoption of resolution 2016-17-19. It's a resolution of the Board of Education of the Santa Barbara Unified School District entering election results for Measure J into the minutes and certifying to the Board of Supervisors of Santa Barbara County all proceedings in the November 8th, 2016 general obligation bond election. Ms. Jete.
So this is just a resolution to accept the election results, and I want to thank our elementary district community for supporting us by 71.34% for passing Measure J. And so the board, or staff is recommending that you pass resolution 2016-17-19, accepting entering the election results for Measure J.
Any comments or questions? Dr. Reed?
I move to adopt the resolution 2016/17-19, resolution of the Board of Education of the Santa Barbara Unified School District entering election results for Measure J into the minutes and certifying to the Board of Supervisors of Santa Barbara County all proceedings in the November 8th, 2016 general obligation bond election.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Dr. Reed and seconded by Ms. Sims Moton. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that passes unanimously. Moving on to item G5, adoption of resolution 2016/17-21. And this is for Measure I. So essentially, same thing, but for Measure I, which is for the secondary district. So
That's correct. The board is, staff is recommending for the board to pass resolution 2016-17-21 for the acceptance of the election results for Measure I.
And can I ask Ms. Jete, what was the percentage that that passed by?
69.16%. Community was amazing.
Great. Yeah, that is wonderful support. Ms. Capps?
Just want to acknowledge the time of that we have with the support of the community and what that means for this board going forward. Thanks.
Great. Is there a motion?
Sure. I move to approve the resolution. Is that correct?
Yes, the resolution, and it's okay just to say the number and then stop.
Where are we?
Kind of heard it once, but.
2016-17-20, resolution of the Board of Education.
All right.
21.
Excuse me.
I know, it's out of order. That's why.
Thank you, okay, great.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it was motion made by Ms. Capps, seconded by Ms. Sims Moton. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And that passes unanimously. Next up is item G7, positive certification of first interim financial report for fiscal year. I'm just trying to get ahead of you. Sorry.
You got my heart going.
I know. Adoption, G6, adoption of resolution 2016/17-20. There it is. Resolution of the Board of Education of the Santa Barbara Unified School District expanding the role of the Independent Citizens Bond Oversight Committee and approving bylaws therefore.
Okay, a little background on this. Currently, the district has two oversight committees, one for Measure Q and one for Measure R. This resolution does two things. One, it allows the district to add Measures I and J to Measures Q and R. And the second thing it does is combine the Measures Q and I with Measures R and J to form one committee for all four measures. And all the committee members will remain on the committees, and if the board approves this resolution and the bylaws, the Measure Q and R will meet on March 13th and discuss the details of combining these two committees. Yesterday, I met with Q and R, and I let them know that this was going to the board, and they're all very excited about it, and they're all willing to meet and determine, make it one committee. A lot of them plan to stay on, but as you can imagine, having four committees with 7 members apiece is really difficult to get the committee members. So they're excited about getting a new flux of money in and doing projects and stuff, so it kind of breathes some life back into the committee since we're ending Q and R. So the staff is recommending that the board adopt resolution 2016-17-20 with the Oversight Committee and they're approving the bylaws.
Board members, are there any questions, Ms. Moton?
No, I don't have a question.
You don't have a question? Anybody want to get a motion on the table?
I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution 2016-17-20.
I second it.
All right, motion by Ms. Sims Moton and second by Dr. Reed. And as part of the discussion, I have a question. Ms. Jeté, just for clarification, are you saying that there will be two committees, one for elementary and one for secondary, or one committee for all of the bonds?
One committee for all 4 bond measures.
I wish we had known that we could do that in the past. Yeah, that makes a lot of
We
sense.
could have even add A and B to that, but
Wow.
we figured since A and B were ending in June 30th, we would just,
No, that makes complete sense. Yeah, that's wonderful.
Isn't that great news?
Yeah. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Now we'll move to item G7, the positive certification of the first interim financial report for 2016-17. Ms.
Thank
Jeté.
you. Santa Barbara Unified School District staff has prepared the fiscal year 2016-17 first interim report for the board's review and approval. I know this was a lot of information on your first day on the job, and I appreciate the questions that people have, board members have asked me. I have prepared a narrative to explain the differences between adopted budget and first interim, and many of the variances are related to the decreases at adopted budget that were done that did not materialize in first interim, which I've explained. I'm not going to go through every page. I trust that you've read that. And so I'll just highlight some things. So I'm moving to page 2. There was an overall decrease in revenue of about 0.25%, and this is due to the slight decrease in the 15-16 corrected P2 and a reduction per ADA of one-time funds. We are funded on prior year ADA, just for your information, and if we are declining, we will always be on prior year P2. So if we're declining in 16-17, they will fund us on P2 15-16. On page 3, expenditures increased by 1.3%. These increases are partially due to the adopted budget assumptions, indicating staff decreases that did not materialize, but also some other, the site funds on the unrestricted side, some of them were moved from books and supplies up into staffing. In the adopted budget, we don't know exactly where the staff or the sites are going to spend their money, so we put placeholders in, and mostly in books and supplies, and then move the budget over once that's determined. Page 4, the local contribution to special education increases again due to the assumptions of staffing that would have been reduced. Page 5, the large increase in the state revenue on the restricted side of the budget is due to the new accounting requirement to record the state's contribution to STRS. The same dollar amount is also recorded in the employee benefits account. So these two entries do not affect the fund balance. However, they do affect the 3% reserve balance because it's all calculated on total expenditures. On page 6, it's typical for expenditures to increase on the from the adopted budget due to the traditional holdback of 10% of the federal funds. They don't approve their budget until the end of September. Also this year, the government performed a new census, which resulted in about a $723,000 increase to Title I. So that was really great. We also had carryover in the title funds due to the federal program review, and we received funds from the College Readiness Grant, as mentioned in the revenue side of, and as mentioned before, the revenue state side, the revenue side, the state STRS contribution. So that's in, you see that in the employee benefits for the expenditures. I'd like to go to page 8 this time. So you have a new graph in your book, and because this by accident the graph was not replaced, but the new graph is on the table, and you should have a copy of it on your dais. As you can see on the new graph, the special reserve, which is our Fund 17, is in the light purple. The restricted is in the white, and the dark purple is the unrestricted fund balance. As you can see, we are eating away at our ending fund balance in the unrestricted side of the budget. I want to go to page 14.
And I just want to hold off just
Okay,
a second. Ms.
sorry.
Sigismund, did you have a question
Yeah,
here?
could you just expand a little bit in terms of eating away at the?
Sorry. So basically, what's happened is we're deficit spending, and that is somewhat planned because we have one-time funds. So when the state of California gives us $7 million in 15-16 and $2.8 million in 16-17, one time, most of that fell to fund balance in 15-16. This year, we're planning to spend more of that, so it is a planned deficit, but there are also other issues with the budget that need to be addressed, as we'll talk about in a few minutes. We have these mandated money that is one time. We have a plan for that, and we're working on what we're going to do with instructional materials and supporting technology. We also have the college readiness grant that was one time, and we had the TIP program, Educator of Effectiveness, which sits on the restricted side of the budget. But these one-time funds have an effect on us because we have expenditures and we don't have any income every year that matches that, but it falls to fund balance. So of course it's projected to disappear a little bit, the fund balance.
So is the increase in the fund balance in the previous years having to do with perhaps that the one-time money projects didn't get spent, they were underspent, or a project didn't
That's
go
correct.
from there, right?
So in 15-16, you'll see a huge, even on this slide, you'll see a huge, well, on the new slide, it's dark purple, but the unrestricted budget was huge because we had 7 million come in and we only spent $500,000. So that falls all to fund balance.
So you didn't have a restriction as to build that fund balance, like, so it's in there and that project didn't complete, so you are not obligated to spend to complete that project, or how?
Well, the mandated money is completely unrestricted. The instruction side of the house is working on instructional materials. Some of that money is for the professional development days is spent on it. $1 million is going into, this year will go into Fund 17, which is our special reserve. So there's a plan to spend.
Okay.
But if the money comes in one year and you spend it in all the other years, you're going to deficit spend because you received it, right? So you will always deficit spend.
And I want to note for members of the public that the graph that you're seeing up there, I mean, you've articulated, but I want to reinforce it, that is not actually correct. That's not what we're seeing on the dais. And so the last number for 18-19 is lower by a few million. And we will get that corrected. And
It's already corrected.
online.
It
So-
will be online
Great.
once the board approves it.
Great.
Can I ask
Yes, Ms. Capps.
a question about the reserve projected percentage of 6.55%? Is that, am I reading it correctly later on in the document that, is it the same, we're talking about the same thing that is not supposed to go over 6, then you have to provide an explanation? That's the same pot of money, correct? Or no?
Well, when you say you have to provide an explanation, are you talking about the state's 6%?
Yeah.
Okay, so if the state makes a deposit into its rainy day fund, and it has to make 3 tests. And maybe I'll talk a little bit about that in the second interim, but it has to reach 3 tests. The state has to do 3 things to make us trigger that 6% reserve amount that we can't go over the 6% reserve. But we can assign things. So for example, that money that we got one time, if we have a plan for it and we assign it in the budget, that doesn't count towards the 6%.
Okay.
So that, because if you're given one-time money and they put a 6% cap on it, what's the purpose of the 6%, of the one-time money?
Thanks for clarifying.
Sure. Okay, I want to go to page 14, 15, and then we'll come back to page 13. I want to talk just a few seconds about what the Legislative Office of Analyst Office, the LAO, is kind of projecting for the future years. It's looking that it's a pretty strong, they're projecting it's a pretty strong 2017-18. They're figuring about $11.5 billion in the total general fund reserves. 8.7 is required for the budget reserve by Proposition 2, that's the rainy day fund, and then 2.8 billion in discretionary reserves. Now, I don't know what they're going to do with those discretionary reserves. Our governor has a habit of putting it as one time, and I totally understand why he's doing that, but if he doesn't put it on Prop 98 or the LCFF funding, it doesn't build on itself if we got a bigger COLA or whatever. They're thinking also about, for as far as Proposition 98 guarantee, they're talking about 2.8 billion available to spend on ongoing K-14 priorities for 2017-18. They're saying that this will close the gap sooner. We are pretty close to our gap, and so when we decline and then they put more money into the gap funding, that gets us to our targeted amount faster. If they put it on a COLA, that kind of extends it a little further. It's kind of many things have different reactions to other things. It's kind of a reactionary thing. Also, the LAO, when they're looking out further out in their out years, they're talking about either growth or mild recession. And if they have a growth, they'll reach the full LCFF target amount by 18-19. If it's a mild recession, once districts meet their target, there will be a slow growth, even though Prop 55 passed out to 2021. So, as I mentioned before, I believe in this at the unaudited actuals. It was great that Prop 55 happened, but depending on the economy, that's what's going to determine how that money affects us. On page 15, the fund balance in 2017-18, we are going to, do you want to, oh, that's okay. We're going to need to start reducing our budget by about 2.5 million, and in 17-18, about 3.5 million. This is due to us putting all the assumptions in the adopted budget all the way through, all those assumptions that we made on the multi-year projections at adopted budget back into the actual budget for first interim. So now we'll go back to page 13, and this is on November 17th, Mr. Matsuoka revealed his new spreadsheet, and everybody loves it. I have to tell you, I was a little bit, what are we doing, restricted and unrestricted? But he's convinced me that the more he shows it, the more people love it. So I'm convinced. You sold me on it. So you'll be seeing this in every interim and every unaudited actual. So on November 17th, you were shown the spreadsheet, and I want to point out that I made an error in 18-19 on line 6, which I cut off the lines, and I apologize for that, but it's on the LCFF funding, and the one on 11-17-16 was 126 million, almost 127 27 million. What I did is, when I was working on this sheet, I was working off of the old multi-year projections in the adopted budget, and I knew that that was going to go up, so I linked it to the number that would equal the number I thought it was going to be. Then I came back into that cell once I knew the LCF number, and I put the new number in. So I double accounted for it. So first interim, I took it out, and that's why there's a $2.7 million problem there. Another thing I want to point out is in the salaries. You'll see a large increase in 16-17, and I believe I've already explained that, and that's because of the putting back all the assumptions in. Then in 17-18, it goes down a little bit, And this is due to somewhat of an increase in their net effect and then a 2.5 reduction. So when I go and do the multi-year projections and submit this SACS report to the county, I have to show that we're going to meet the 3% reserve. And to do that, I had to put a placeholder in the budget in the multi-year projections for $2.5 million. These are ongoing costs, so I put them in the salary area just because that makes them ongoing. That doesn't mean that that's where they stay. It doesn't mean it's classified. It doesn't say anything, but they're ongoing.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
So when you move them out, will you show us where you've made that? Because you're saying you're putting them there just because that's an ongoing cost. So where will we know when those costs are coming back out?
We will have an answer for you by second interim of where we're going to try to make those cuts, those reductions in the budget. So then on 18-19 in the salary and benefits column or row, we have an additional $3.5 million, plus we had to remove the 3 days of professional development because in 18-19 that's when it ends. We go back to 185 days. In 17-18 we're 188 and then we go back down to 185. So that's my presentation on the first interim. I'll take any questions.
Great questions, Dr. Reed.
Yes, I just wanted to sort of, per our discussion that we had at the end of the report, if you could explain a little bit more background information relational to the criteria and standards summary.
Oh, sure.
Number one, I'm wondering if you can clarify the reasons why we only have 8 of the 12 standards not being met. And is this relational to our current budget challenges? And can you specifically speak to number 5 and 7 and 8?
In the criterion standards. So what this criterion standard does is it takes the information that you've put in it and said, is this reasonable? You know, if we compare these other 2 years, you were 2%, 3%, 4%, plus or minus. So when you go in and it's looking at what happened at your adopted and what happened at your first interim. So now it's saying, you know, we made all those reductions at adopted budget, and now we've put them all in. So we're out of sync. I was doing this and I was sitting there going, I have never put an explanation as many times as I have this budget. So this is abnormal, and but that's basically the reason why this happened. So number 5.
Can I just ask, could those get up on the screen? Do you have a page number?
Yes, that's, we're on 135 is where we start.
Oh, the criteria, I think it's on page 30.
31.
It's 30 and 31 starts the criteria and standards.
Oh, that's the summary.
Right.
The bulk of it is in the back.
Okay.
Okay, so I have to look at the bulk because I need to understand which question you're asking. But you can stay on this page. So we have, so it's 5. So this is calculating the historic ratio of the unrestricted salaries and benefits to the total unrestricted general fund expenditure. So what they do is they take the total general fund, unrestricted side, and they compare it to the amount of salary and benefits. So if you have, again, one-time funds, you're going to spend those one-time funds down, let's say, you know, $7 million. Your ratio to your salaries is going to be lower, right? Because you're heavy in your 4s, 5s, and 6s, which is your books and supplies, contracted services, and capital outlay. As those one-time funds disappear, your overall expenditures will decrease. So the relationship between your salaries and benefits and your unrestricted expenditures your benefits and salaries will go up, right? Because your overall expenditures go down because you don't have those one-time funds. The more one-time funds kick into our budget, it makes the expenditure side of the budget higher overall, And so the percentage is lower for salaries and benefits. Does that make sense?
Yes, I guess I'm wondering if all of these not mets, though, are relational to, obviously, the challenges that we find with our budget currently.
Well, yeah, because when you have the adopted budget reduced by that much percent, like 3.4 million, and your salaries go up, that should have been a good sign that the percentage goes up. But then when you put them back in, your overall expenditures go up.
So, I'm sorry.
Ms. Sims-Moten.
So were they initially met when you adopted the budget, you were in ratio and you were fine, and then when you had to readjust it out, they were no longer met? So I'm just trying to figure, were they ever met, or were they?
Yeah, as I said before, this is kind of a skewed time between adopted and first because of the reduction, the large reduction in adopted, and then putting everything back in. And
So is there a percentage that we always need to meet, in terms of percentage of salaries in these areas? Or we always say, is it all supposed to be maybe 15% our salaries and benefits of our total revenue? Is it based on that, or how is it based?
so it's comparing past years.
Okay.
And so at the top of it, it will compare 13, 14, 14, 15, and 15, 16, and get a percentage. Are you in plus or minus that percentage? And in here, it's a 3% difference. And we didn't hit it in 2 years, and that's 16, 17, and 18, 19. And in 18, 19, we reduced salaries. We reduced it by 3.5 because I plugged that number in there, and then another $1 million for the professional development days. So that's almost a $4 million decrease.
Mr. Matsuoka.
Can I offer a comment about, I think we react to the words not met. That sounds bad. But what it really is we've not met a standard about stability. If you just read the words, it's about they're looking for degrees of change. So now, we do have a budget issue that we need to work on, but a couple pages up, we're noting positive certification.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's the big picture for you as a board. The not met is, okay, we had some criteria that change more than some standard, okay?
So it's the percentage of change.
Yeah,
not
it's a
necessarily the
percent of
overall piece.
change, yeah. The state wants stability.
Right, got it.
And if you're in reason, and that's basically what it is too.
But the state also creates instability, right? So any other comments or questions on this? Just finishing up on this piece, I assume that the county and the state are understanding because of the situation around the not mets. And also may I assume, Ms. Chate, that we won't really be able to fully correct this until our next adopted budget.
Well, we have to have some sort of plan by second interim because I told the county that they can't expect a brand-new board to do what we're asking you to do, so within the first interim. So they say, well, let's have some sort of plan by the second interim, and we've discussed it in cabinet, and we'll have that to you.
Great. Any other comments? Dr. Reed.
Yeah, I would just like to state that it would be great to have some sort of starting of a plan after the first of the year for us and giving us choices, perhaps of, we're asked to do 2.5 million in cuts, and perhaps we might think about looking at choices for 3 million in cuts so that we can have ideas of what we can be working with so that staff can provide us with this information and we can have it well researched and analyzed.
Can I offer a comment to that request? I completely understand that. I think before we use the word cuts, there's analysis of our budget. Obviously, salaries and benefits is the largest, but there's some other numbers up there that we need to sift through. So what you're going to hear is a game plan actually at the January 10th meeting about how we as your cabinet and principals are going to work through. We've got to find that 2.5 million. I think we can get there. We're going to try and avoid cuts because we're not there yet, but we got to tighten our belts, yes. So you will see some recommendations. Some of it is, we can identify as your cabinet, okay, we can make these reductions without affecting staffing. If it gets into staffing, we absolutely need to bring that to you. And we have to have a broader discussion about what are the options, and then how do we make those decisions. But our goal is to get to the point this year about cuts and positions. The next year, the 3.5 million, we'll figure that out. We have some time.
Mrs. Moten, you know, being a fiscal person and having to make those reports to the commission, I want to say thank you for this report and our questions coming back at you. So I appreciate your willingness to give us the answers, and certainly the fact that we're new with regards to that. But I'm with you on having to report to a commission and a budget, so even in tight times. So thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Capps?
Thanks, Mr. Tate. I just was hoping you might refresh our memories on the process, and potentially the public might benefit from just hearing when the second interim report comes, just because it's not obvious to everyone.
Okay, so the second interim will be as of January 30th, and then it has to be to the county by March 15th.
Okay.
We have a board meeting on March 14th, so you will see it then, and then we'll send it to the county.
Great.
Then we go through a lot of LCAP process, and we get our budget ready for adopted budget, and we finish that up by June 30th.
Okay.
And then unaudited actuals are due to the state on September 15th. So that's kind of our financials. You will see an audit on January 10th for 15-16.
Thank you very much.
All right, I do need a motion. Is there somebody willing to step forward?
Yes, I'll make a motion that we accept the first interim financial report.
We need to approve the positive certification.
Do I need to say that? Make a motion to approve a positive certification of the financial report.
Great. Is there a second?
Yes, I second.
All right, made by Ms. Sims-Moten, seconded by Ms. Capps. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And it passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, we will try to speed things up a little bit as we go through the next few. Item G8 is the approval of construction managers for future capital funds projects. And that says Mr. Hetjunk.
He was not available tonight, so
Okay.
I'll step in. So you read about the process. We interviewed 6 firms. We're recommending 3, and we've done all the background checks on them. And that's the 6 architects that were approved about a year ago. So we're bringing that recommendation to approve these 3 firms to serve our bond program that's about to launch.
Any questions or a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move to approve the construction managers for future capital fund projects.
Second.
Made by Dr. Reed, seconded by Ms. Sims-Moten. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Item G9, approval of proposals for architectural services and modular building purchase for the Las Flores Preschool Building Replacement Project. Mr. Matsuoka.
For the benefit of our 3 new board members, we have a preschool that we've had to close down because it's beyond repair. If you know the location, it's, I forget the streets. You're all nodding like you know where it is.
We know where it is, yeah.
So we have been exploring the use of a modular design. It speeds up delivery. The timeline is 1 year from tonight, which is fast for school construction. We need to get an architect under contract, so that's the Robert Robles. And then the purchase of the building is through what's called a piggyback bid. So another district has already done the bidding process. It's a set price across the state if you want to use this type of delivery. So we are asking for your approval of these 2 contracts, one with the architect and one with the modular delivery company.
Board questions, comments? No, I will just comment that I'm, one of the reasons why I'm so interested in this, of course, is what does this turn out like? It's great to use this as a sort of a sample project to see what it would look like to use modular building for some of our new construction that we'll need to be doing. So I'm pleased to see this coming forward. We need to have a motion to approve. Jump in anytime.
Sure. I move to approve
And it's also okay, just
Yeah.
to say so moved.
So moved.
Or-
I move to approve the proposal for architectural services.
I second it.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. And that passes unanimously. Moving on to item G10, this is the approval of the 2017-18 traditional and year-round school calendars. Mr. Turina.
Thank you, President Parker. Welcome to the school board. This is just a presentation of our calendar for the 17-18 school year. The initial calendar was ratified in March 17, 2016, and then the MOU between us and Santa Barbara Teachers Association was signed on May 16th. It was just an oversight that my department did not bring this to the board when we approved the 16-17 calendar. So we are asking for the recommendation to approve this calendar for the 17-18 school year.
Ms. Capps.
If I just make a friendly suggestion, I'm supportive of approving it, but as a parent, I know this is meant for staff and teachers, but it's also what's on the website, and as a parent, it's very hard to understand. So if a different version could also be posted for families and students that is actually just about when you need to go to school, not all the rest of it, would be very helpful.
Yes, we can look at doing a monthly calendar or the full year calendar.
I mean, I don't want to get into that, but just that feedback of
a more user-friendly calendar for
that would be
public.
fantastic. Yeah.
Any other comments?
So noted.
I would agree with that, and I think it should be a year-long calendar that maybe doesn't look like a calendar, but that just lists out the dates of when things happen. That would be great.
Okay.
I do need a motion to approve this.
So moved.
Very good. I second it. All right, moved by Mrs. Moten and seconded by Dr. Reed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Next up is G11, approval of board order regarding trustee replacement. Mr. Matsuoka.
We've divided this topic into two pieces. So the Ed Code states that when you need to replace a board member for a variety of reasons, the board has two options: to order a special election, which, by the way, we did not research the cost because it would be six figures, or to do an appointment process. In my experience across the state is most boards do an appointment process. I can't think if I'm looking at our WAS director. He sees the entire state. So it's expedient, it's cost effective. So your first decision is to vote on an appointment process as a process for replacing Monique Lamont's seat.
So in this case, this is not making a motion based on the title. This is making a motion to make a provisional appointment to fill our vacancy, the vacancy on the Santa Barbara Unified School Board. Do I have a motion to do that?
Is this the appropriate time to ask about outreach? I mean, I understand the need to do this quickly, but it does fall during the holidays, and so.
I think we can talk about it on the next item.
Next item, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
This is just about whether or not we're going to hold an election or have an
Thank you.
appointment.
Okay.
So I motion that we use a provisional appointment process to fill the vacancy.
I second.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye? And that passes unanimously. All right, now to more of the details. And this is the trustee replacement process and supporting documents. Mr. Matsuoka.
So we provided an additional document at the dais, and it actually has the timeline in detail. And so there's a variety of documents that were included. Certainly a copy of our board bylaws that provides our local guidance. And then this document, which was now placed at your seat, it has some of the background code, Ed Code. The more, I think, relevant part is the timeline and process, and we definitely want to make sure that this works with your schedule. By the way, we are on a clock. There's the Ed Code just says we only have so much time to get this done, and our legal counsel says we need to be done by January, I think it was 14th, 2017. So it's unfortunate that we have to do a lot of this work over the holiday break, but we have to get it done. So that's the crunch on the timeline. And there is some questions for you to think about. So we need a subcommittee to look through the paper applicants and to distill down to the candidates that we would like to interview, you would like to interview. And then there's a questionnaire that we've proposed that candidates fill out. It's a solid list of questions, and these are coming really straight from CSBA, so we're working off of their templates. So it's 2 questions, actually 3 questions. Does the timeline work? Who would like to serve as a subcommittee to paper screen? And 3, do you have any comments or questions about the application questions?
All right, let's break that up and let's talk about the timeline first. All right, Ms. Capps?
Yeah, it's not about my time over the holidays. It's more about the community, diverse communities understanding that there is even this potential. And I think the fact that there wasn't an election for us adds to the potential that the word is not out, that there is another opportunity if someone wishes to serve. So I don't know, I know that's incumbent upon us, but also communications from the district to get the word out as quickly as we can, so that that everyone who has an interest in this would hear about this in a timely fashion before January 3rd. So that's just my question/concern with the timeline. Understanding that we need to, I don't have any problems with the timeline. It's a good one that we need to fill, and we have to fill. But I think it adds pressure to get the word out appropriately.
And any other comments just on the timeline? And what about the dates that are suggested? And we can see up on the screen. That's easier to see than on my screen. Dr. Reed?
Well, I would just say that I actually will be out of town on January 3rd and January 4th, but that's when the forms are due and the subcommittee would be meeting, so
yeah,
I will not be able to be a part of the subcommittee.
Okay. I'll just note that essentially I was able, when I was up at CSBA, to go to a talk about the appointment process, and what I hadn't understood was that it's not from the date that Ms. Limon effectively resigned, it's from the date she turned the letter in. And that's why that 60-day kicked off. If we don't do it by January 14th, then the county ed office calls a special election, and it's taken out of our hands. So we're stuck with the timeline, and I completely agree with Ms. Capps that we need to work really hard to make sure that all members of our community hear about this opportunity. And so I think you got the feedback on the timeline.
Would you mind just filling us in with past appointments? How does that word even get out? What are the
Well,
channels?
we haven't done it since 2004.
So there's been some.
So it's been
additional
some
technology.
time.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, we have certain basic requirements about getting the word out that we're required to. But I think there's multiple platforms that we could use at this point, and we'll be certainly roping in Ms. Kiani to work on that. Anything else, Dr. Reed?
I was just going to say, let's request Mrs. Kiani to help us with that, and also maybe there could be some media, television, radio, not just the website, or, get the word out, so.
Yep. And then on to the subcommittee question. I would certainly be happy to serve on the board subcommittee, and I have the time over that period. I know it is kind of immediately post-holiday. And Dr. Reed can, and you can, Ms. Capps? Okay.
Back on the 3rd, so.
All right. Any objection to that, Ms. Sims-Moton?
Nope, if
Okay.
you need me as an alternate, I can step in as well.
Great, then Ms. Capps and I will work on that. And then the third question was really about the documents themselves. And we have a candidate information sheet that Mr. Matsuoka pulled from CSBA. Did anybody have any suggestions for revisions, or are you pretty good with the basics? It's pretty comprehensive.
Yeah.
The subcommittee could then work on the questions for the actual interview. The process takes place in public, and I think that closer to the time when we're actually doing it, I could lay out some of the things that I was able to hear at CSBA, maybe at our I don't know, it'll be at our next meeting or right before the next meeting, so that we understand that, or no, because we're starting this process beforehand.
The interviews take place the day before our next scheduled board meeting.
All right, well, some of the things that I heard were essentially that obviously the subcommittee is going to look at just basic eligibility. Do you live within the district? Do you are you over 18? Are you able to vote? So essentially, are you registered to vote? You need to be registered to vote, which means that you do need to be a U.S. citizen. Boards can put other criteria out there, and we may want to, because for one of the members there at CSBA said, for example, you wouldn't want to have, you wouldn't be able to interview 15 or 20 people. But boards have tried to take that kind of thing on, and we've had, I think the last time we had something like 17 to 20 applicants. And so I would like to get some feedback now if there's some other piece of information, like we do ask if people are involved in our schools. Maybe we would want to have something in there that says you need to be somebody who is currently involved as a volunteer or and otherwise has some connection to our schools. But I don't know, so I'd love to get your feedback on that.
In terms of a question or a requirement?
If it gets to the point, I mean,
Yeah.
In an ideal world, we'll have 100 people who think this is a wonderful
Right.
thing and want to put forward an application, but we couldn't interview that quantity. Do we want to set some basic parameters beyond just the age and voter and living within the district?
I think that a general connection to our school district, which could be open to any kind of interpretation,
Mhm.
would help.
Mhm.
It would seem important, but not to define it further than
Yeah,
that.
than that,
Yeah.
okay. Anybody else have any suggestions?
I was going to say, I agree with you, and I think we need to make sure that we have it open to the community and opportunities for all people to apply, and based on our criteria, but we just don't want to limit people if we, I know it's good to have less, but I appreciate having people participate and come forward and want to have this. We want a diverse group of people, and we want opportunities for everyone to be able to have that opportunity to do it.
All right, any other thoughts on that? This is an action item, and it sounds like we should approve the timeline, the subcommittee members, and the supporting documents to go with the approval process. Anybody would like to make a motion based on that?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Capps and seconded by Ms. Sims Moten. Any further discussion?
We learn really fast.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Let's move on to board action on student discipline, starting with item G13. This is case number 2016-17-11.
Okay, in the case of number 2016-17-11, I would move to approve the administrative hearing panel recommendation for full expulsion for one school year, which ends June 2017. In the case of...
we're going to take them one at a time, so...
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Passes unanimously. Next up, G14.
In the case number 201617-12, I move to approve the administrative hearing panel recommendation for the expulsion with enforcement suspended for one semester, which ends January 2017.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Passes unanimously.
In the case number 2016-17-13, I move to approve the administrative hearing panel recommendation for full expulsion one school year, which ends June 2017.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Passes unanimously.
In the case number 2016-17-14, I move to approve the stipulation and agreement contract expulsion with enforcement suspended for one school year, which ends June 2017.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. And in the case 2016-17-16, I move to approve the stipulation and agreement contract expulsion with enforcement suspended for one school year, which ends June 2017.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And that also passes unanimously. Thank you. And with that, we will end the action agenda and move on to our report discussion agenda. First up is item H1, and this is the WASC accreditation of a school district. Mr. Matsuoka.
I provided background info in the board report, and I'd like to welcome Dr. Fred Van Leuven, who is the executive director of WASC. And he's also a local guy because he was superintendent of Sandy Inez Union High School District. And so he's going to go very quickly through the first set of slides and then really spend his time on the district accreditation part. So
I
welcome.
just would like to congratulate you for, as you're discovering, a very complicated but very important role. And there's no doubt the way you guys are running this thing, you'll have somebody in that seat pretty quickly and you'll have a lot to choose from. And your superintendent has coached me about being very quick because we're sensitive to the amount of time. And I know
you frightened me with your 31 slides.
Yeah, well, you've read the slides in advance, so that's the good part. I have to get to the, my intention is to talk about district accreditation, but I want to build a base so you'll understand what it is, not only for this conversation, but accreditation will be impacting all of your secondary schools, and I think it's important we be able to see it long after I'm gone. We've been around for a long time, and it really started back over 55 years ago because principals and superintendents were ticked off about the way the UC system didn't let their kids get in. And so the irony is, actually in the San Ynez Valley, one of the superintendent at that time was on one of the beginning board members that started all of this WASC stuff. We're one of 6 regional accrediting bodies. We are worldwide. Primarily, at least in terms of the states, California, Hawaii, and Guam, but we're in China, Southeast Asia, Middle East, and you can see where we are. Almost 5,000 schools. Our organization does everything adult ed, high school, middle school, and elementary schools. And we have a really slick slide that will be, a lot of motion, you'll get all excited about it. What makes us really special in terms of why it's important for high schools is the A through G requirement for curriculum. High schools have to be accredited for those seniors to be able to get into the UC system. And so that's, if there's a compliance piece to us, that's making sure that science labs are there and the kind of curriculum can be supported. And we don't accredit the JCs or the colleges. And we get into, we're not going to be able to show this one. Actually, this one had a lot of motion. And there's one box there that shows in the beginning there was all one organization that had both the JC Commission, the seniors, and then ours. And then in 2013 we split and we all became one. So ours is the center one, but there's a senior, so we see what the UC system has, and we have where am I here? Santa Barbara Community College for the JC. We have a board. I have to learn how to count to 17 because I have 32 commissioners. They represent all sorts of different organizations. We have 7 from AXA, the State Administrative Association for California. That's the most. We have 4 for the Catholic groups. We have 1 for Seventh-day Adventists, and I could go on, but it's a very diverse amount of folks. We have 26 staff members. We have 2 headquarters. The main headquarters is in Burlingame, and we have 1 now down. It's in Rancho Bernardo, San Diego. 1,500 accrediting visits, 12,000 volunteers that come from school districts, your school district send folks. And similar board responsibilities, make sure we're financially sound, make sure we have good policies, and that's the most important thing is they grant accreditations, the status for schools. The process is the schools go through a self-study, very, very thorough, and they look at these basic criteria when they're through the snapshot. We see that it's a school community will start this whole process. They'll go through this protocol looking at themselves. A visiting team will come in and give feedback. They develop an action plan, and then they monitor that piece, and then it all goes around in a circle. Since we have schools doing this, we sort of think that maybe we should have done that, had a self-study. So we did that, and it's kind of the same questions you might be thinking about asking about yourselves, about how you're serving the school communities and that you deal with, the impact that you make. We had our very first, and this hasn't been done before in any of these regional accrediting bodies, but we surveyed 2,100 high school, California high school principals. If it had a high school in it, if it was a charter, K-12, didn't make any difference, Court Community School, they were involved in the survey, and then we had face-to-face interviews. There was a company that, or an organization that did that follow-up. The part that was the most interesting is in these surprises, we now can officially say that we're worth something because we would anecdotally be popping off with this stuff, but now we can say that principals see this as a useful process. They've discovered that maybe they aren't using the data the way they should be in terms of how it impacts schools. They do a very good job developing action plans. This might sound familiar, but maybe don't do that good a job in terms of seeing how they're doing with it. The part that was a little bit surprising to me was that in the two in red that are related really to the district office, they wish the district office was more engaged. They don't know how to engage the district office. Again, this is from the principal's perspective. And the other thing is they don't know how to engage their board. Nor really should they. That's really from a district's perspective on how they use that. So we have some more conversations about that a little bit later. They wanted more help after the visit, some sort of structured from our organization. They wish it was more streamlined, and probably more important, they wish all of this stuff was aligned because of from the federal, the state, and whatever the district has, and then what they have, it's difficult through that process. So how has this impacted us already? Because when you have this data, you go through this process and it starts impacting your lives. So we've been going out and I've been meeting with superintendents and their district teams, talking about creating some sort of oversight, making sure that they're there to help the schools. The parent involvement is a big issue, and they're having problems with that. And you guys are getting graded on it with an LCAP for how you engage parents. Even the conversations you've been starting today, the calendar, see, you can shine right there, right off the bat. But these are all things that we're talking about, how to use that through this WASC accreditation process. And it's from also an aspect of using it as a tool, because that's all this is a tool to help districts and boards be able to get to where you want to get to, which is increasing student learning. And then we've been aligning the cycles. We have done this. We accredit all your high schools, and we've got Santa Barbara Junior High. Goleta Valley was supposed to come on this year. Change in principalship, it's delayed it. But the intent was to bring all of the middle schools on, and we were been aligning those things. We've also changed because we've started doing more training. We've been working with the State Department of Ed in doing joint training, and we've been aligning our processes with California, Hawaii, and Guam. Each one of those have different accountability, vernacular, and how they, California is different from what Hawaii is wanting in terms of even how they deal with the underperforming schools. Okay, using this, and this is really using this as a tool. We're on a 6-year cycle. And it starts off with a self-study and ends at a self-study, but there's all this stuff in between. And usually there's a mid-cycle visit usually at 3 years. The important part is each one of those years, you're not just sitting back and waiting for these visits to come in. You should be monitoring that. And there's some processes where districts can be using that to help support this. This is the same helping align with the LCAP as well. So these are the basic levels that we have. If you're in the blue side, you're in the normal cycle. If there's some areas that you may be a little bit deficient, you need some more help, you're put on probation, you're still accredited, but those are areas that will come back and have a visit either in 1 or 2 years. Or there are people who lose their accreditation. So that does happen. So these are the basic parts of this, but the part that I think that we want to really look at is in this blue cycle. It is not just a report every 6 years. It needs to be an ongoing part where there's monitoring and things going on. It's got to align, and this is one of the issues that we're talking about, and I've had 3 conversations here in this district, and we've discovered through this process, because when you start talking about things, you discover things. There's need to be greater alignment for all the things that are going on, and how this works its way from the board to the classroom, from your vantage point. And one of the requirements is schools annually send people out on teams so they can actually go and learn things from other places and come back and share those ideas. So Common Core that was out there, schools could go out, you can go out and look and see what's going on in math and English and how instruction is. Okay, we'll flip through this one here. We've been aligning with, and I put all the vernacular or the translations up there because I knew this was going to be a first board meeting. I wasn't sure how sophisticated we were, but obviously California Department of Ed, CDE, State Board of Education, and then California Collaborative for Educational Excellence.
That was the group that
That's the group that's going to identify the bottom 5% and start working with them. And so our organization is aligned with all of these folks so that we don't want to have everybody doing different things. We want to try to support that. We're not going to be in the police role when we're working with CCEE. And whatever, you know, because we have an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with the Department of Ed, our whatever we're developing is all embedded in our protocol. These are the basic accountability, and we're going to see if this actually moves. I have a feeling it's not based on what we're seeing here so far. But actually, the LCAP is the state program. This is the federal program, the LEAP. And what's happening at the state level, well, let's back up. All the blue, these are basically the 4 different kinds of accountability systems. So we have the state recognition systems. You know, it used to be Blue Ribbon. There's a variety of things. The bottom 5%, the federal and state. And they're actually, will it move? It doesn't move, okay? So in real life, this would have moved. The LEAP and the LCAP would have become one because what they're trying to do at the state level is make the federal be the same report for the state one, which is phenomenal because that means less work for everybody here. They have in the red the single school plan. That is in Ed Code. It requires every school supposed to deal with that. You guys, for you were here, just approve those. You're discovering in this process those quite possibly aren't aligned the way they should be with your LCAP and LEAP and those things, which is one of the issues that you'll need to work through. And for our purposes, every school action plan, we don't need a WASC action plan. The action plan is whatever the school needs and what that is. And so that's, we're not requiring a whole nother form for everybody to deal with. We've been aligning the schools, and this will not work because it's not going to move. But we can imagine. So we're going to have to think now. We heard music tonight. Now we're going to see things move. So in a district that's, you know, has a high school and 2 middle schools and 4 elementary schools, it's like popcorn right now. They just pop off, and this is when they would do their full self-study. We can imagine if all those were to line up under the high school and go all down, they would be doing a self-study at one time. They would be able to look at things in a K-12 basis. And it makes it a heck of a lot easier for what's going on for the district staff to be able to support those kinds of those issues. So we have been moving these, and this is what we did for Santa Barbara and Santa Barbara Middle School. So when they go through their self-study process, they'll be able to talk and start working together, okay? You can imagine this, but you guys, fertile imaginations, that's good. And again, it allows the whole group to be able to look at these things and work effectively. Okay, now we built the base, district accreditation. What we've done is we've taken this accreditation process and applied it to a school district. And it allows the district to look deeply into the processes. And basically to answer the same questions that we talked about earlier. In a district, basically we have a board superintendent, and it really doesn't make any difference. Generally there's an education division, there's a personnel division, and business. And what happens is that generally these folks below, food, accounting, transportation, you know, technology can be a standalone, but for purpose of this conversation, the green talks to the green, the orange talks to the orange, and the blue talks to the blue. We have silos that get created just by the work. And so one of the things as we go through this district accreditation process is we have all these folks talking to each other, which is a process that really hasn't existed in a lot of schools. And we get feedback coming also from the schools as well. And so from the district standpoint, they have a protocol that we've adapted. And we go through the same process where the visiting team comes in, they develop action plans, and they go back through the monitoring, change, and report back. We have done this before. We did this in Guam. So Guam is a little bit different. Their state board is the school board. And they have 9 members. It's about a 30,000 kid district with 40 schools. Each of the schools completed their self-study because we do elementary, middles, and high, so they continue to do that, but we had the district go through this process. Your former superintendent was actually on the visiting committee, And it was a very positive experience for Guam and the board, and dramatically changed things that they discovered way before the team got there. And we are in the process now of selecting one Northern and one Southern California district that would go through this process here. We already have had the California Department of Ed in one of their divisions is going to go through this accreditation process, so we have that as well. We've got 3 other districts that we're talking to. I met with one yesterday, Antelope Valley High School District, about a 28,000 kid district that has 7 feeder schools, so we're looking at different avenues that way. I've got to come back and talk to their administrative team, but they're all into it, just like you guys were. I think this would be an excellent match, and that was one of the concerns. I want it good for the school district. I also want it good for us, because what we want to do is create something that will be able to go across the board for other schools and districts, especially with a new superintendent, kind of new now. You can't still say you're new, I don't think, and a board. And I think it's actually an excellent opportunity to review some of the changes that have happened since your unification. And you have some feeder districts that aren't part of that, and you're discovering things the more you get into it, why this might be good for you to be looking at yourselves a little bit differently. It's a whole lot of money. So it's what we charge a membership fee for a high school once a year. And then you cover the costs of a team, and we'll figure out how big the team is, probably about five members that are here for 3.5 days. Most, when we do these things, even in the schools discover what the issues way before anybody shows up, because they're looking at things and they look deeply at the data. We're looking at a 6-year cycle, and again, it's just a tool or process for the district to look at how to get better. So what the next step would be that we would sit down and work with district staff to develop the protocol, making sure we have that. And it's not very difficult to do that, but we want to make sure we cover all of the things. And we will have a couple other districts that are engaged with this in the same process, so we're having more communication. And then we'll work how the design group would be, and then just the logistics of it. But we would work with the school district, the WASC staff, to do that. And you get progress reports to the board. Okay. I whipped through that one fairly quickly, and I don't know if you want to say something or if there are other questions, or.
I've been around Fred for, 4 years on different committees, and the alignment work that he's doing between WASC and CDE, 4 or 5 years ago, we were being asked to write 3 different plans, Fed, state, the school SIPSAs. It was all over the map, and the alignment that he's brought at the state level is tremendous. The opportunity to work with him and WASC to help us align internally, I think it's a golden opportunity. And we are a new team from a governance standpoint, so the timing's good. So I would invite questions or comments from the board about this process.
Any discussion, board? Dr. Reed?
I'll just say that I think any sort of self-analysis is great, and I think it's a great evaluative tool. I just would want to make sure, too, that we're looking at what does that look like to our principals and our teachers who are already overwhelmed with everything that they're doing. So I'm curious, the impact it will have on staff in terms of this process.
I could answer that question. There would be those that would say this is the work they would be doing anyway, in terms of, from a district's aspect, supporting the schools. The schools are already doing this because they're going through their self-study, and there's things that they're discovering in their process. This would be an alignment with things that they're discovering, and they may find something, you may find something at one school that's really a theme, and it may be something that could be as a process or a procedure or a policy that's been developed, the way it's being implemented. But it's taking time to look at the way things are going. In some cases, if we don't take time to look at it, then we sit around and we don't know that things are not doing as effective or being as effective as they could. Was that cryptic enough for an answer for you?
I think the greatest impact is going to be on the district office staff, because it's a district level accreditation. We'll have to have questions of our principals and teachers, but it's mostly, it's our work.
And you're not concerned about capacity?
I am very concerned about capacity. And so we would need to find some funding and hire a person that could be the coordinator of this kind of district level accreditation. High schools, when they go through it, they take a teacher and they put them on a part-time assignment to be the WAS coordinator. And so I've already had conversations with one community foundation, and he really likes the idea of supporting us. So my goal is to find funding to support a person to run this process for us for a couple years.
And I know who we're talking about because I am a Santa Barbara County boy here, and so I would also help in that process as well to facilitate that.
So my question is, when would you make a final decision about, on your end, about what districts you wanted to work with? What sort of a timeline are we talking about here?
Well, if you're in, you're in. I mean,
Okay.
this was like a slam dunk from when we started having conversations. I think you guys are the ideal district. We've had a district up in Northern California that I've been working with, that the more we kept working, and I've been extensively working with them, the timing really wasn't right for them, and it wouldn't have been right for us either. So I think I've got some already. It's just a matter of whittling it down. I would like to have Santa Barbara be engaged with it.
So is this something that you could like bring forward on consent at a next, with my fellow board members' approval, just to have it come forward on consent? The only thing I would ask is, when it comes to the funding piece, to outline that you'll be seeking outside funding to help support the process. That would be helpful.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And next is the report on the basics of general obligation municipal bonds and method of sale, item H2. Ms. Chate?
Thank you very much. As you all know, we passed a lot of bonds on November 8th. And so now we are getting ready to proceed with selling those bonds. With my team tomorrow, we are deciding on a timeline, and we'll get back to you on that timeline. But as part of this agenda item, there's a narrative regarding the bond process and information on selling the bonds. And we have chosen to go negotiated bonds, and I explained a little bit of that in the narrative. But Ms. Joanna Bose is here, and she has willing to come up and talk to us about the difference between a negotiated and a competitive sale, and explain why we chose negotiated.
Good evening again. It's Joanna Bose, and I'm with Canon Public Finance, and I'm your advisor. So good evening to President Burke. Congratulations to all the board members and to the superintendent. Nice to be here. I also have received instructions about shortness, which I appreciate. And I do like the idea so much about the narratives of what's going to be discussed. So you have had, I think, a very concise report that Ms. Jade put together about the method of sale. And what we're really talking about is that first blue line. How will the district sell its bonds to the public? So I'm trying to make this as simple as possible. She reviewed two types of sales, or two ways to do it. One was competitive. I'm not going to go over everything she did. Just a little reminder for you, so I can go to the second slide, that you have if you could go back to the first slide for just a minute, that in a competitive sale, you invite people to bid on your bonds. It's nationwide. We set the criteria. And some of the characteristics you look for is that you're a frequent issuer, and you have a strong name recognition, name recognition, which you do. You have a simple structure and a stable market. And on a negotiated sale, you choose your investment banking firm who is going to provide the money to sell your bonds to you. You get the money, they sell your bonds. That's the sell to the public. And they offer some very good reasons to be chosen. One is they have pre-sale marketing, which gives them a longer time in the marketplace to sell your bonds and increase your name recognition. Flexibility of timing, and also if you have a non-standard geo structure, that's more reason to have a negotiated sale, which she alluded to, or not alluded to, was called out in her narrative, which is that if you have something other than just straight 25-year geo bonds or a different kind of structure, you have a special kind of structure, which is called an SFID, which I assume you are familiar with at this point. And if you have a volatile market, a good reason to use a negotiated sale. Do I need to talk about SFID? Did I? All right, good,
I'm
great.
sorry, I'm new at this. Can you tell me, when you say GO bond, what does that mean?
General obligation bond.
Okay.
And from now on, I will not use any nomenclature. I will spell everything out. Thank you. And the next slide, our decision, our recommendation to the district is to do a negotiated sale through a competitive process of talking to various firms. I'm recommending this because of the nature, mainly the nature of the municipal market, and that means what interest rates are doing. We've been through a very tumultuous time since the election of November 8th, which is going to probably carry on to next year, meaning the increase of interest rates. Tomorrow, as you know, the Federal Reserve is going to be releasing its first notice. We'll see whether it's 25, 50, 75 basis points and what the range is. So that's going to continue, and you need to be able to choose your timing, flexibility of your timing when we get into the market. We just came through 2 or 3 weeks where I did a number of school districts where it was decided by staff, we are going to sell, we're not going to sell, we're going to wait to January, do we wait to January? Districts who needed their money, with rates still being low, elected to sell their bonds, which I think was a good decision. But that's a very good example of what the flexibility allows you going forward into the beginning of next year. Also, 2 other things, there's a lot of, as I said, pre-sale marketing. When you have a firm chosen ahead, gives them a lot longer lead time to tell them about Santa Barbara Unified School District as well as the elementary school district. And that also goes into also the supply. There's one of the factors you can imagine when you have something sold to you, if there's a lot of stuff on the street or on a shelf in a marketplace, and you get to choose, sometimes that gets to lower the price. So we like to put you into the marketplace where you're by yourself and really can stand out and create more demand for that. So for those reasons, we're recommending a negotiated sale.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining it to us, and thank you for explaining it to members of the public that will watch this.
Mhm.
So that's really helpful. Any discussion on this or questions? Was it clear? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And here's to a great outcome. Next is H4, discussion of proposed classified job descriptions for family engagement. Dr. Ramirez.
Skipped one.
Did I do that again? I keep wanting to, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Discussion of Board Policy 3420, debt issuance and management, first reading. Ms. Jate.
I feel your love here. Okay, existing California law requires public agencies to provide information to the California Debt and Advisory Commission no later than 30 days prior to the sale of debt. Senate Bill 1029, signed into law by Governor Brown on September 12, 2016, amends this law and places additional reporting obligations to issuers of debt. In part of SB 1029 requires that an issuer certify that the adopted local debt policy concerning the use of debt and that the proposed debt issuance is consistent with the local debt policy. SB 1029 lists certain topics to be covered in the local debt policy. Before you is our first reading of the Santa Barbara Unified Debt Policy Board Policy 3420.
Right, so this is a brand-new policy.
A brand-new policy.
Board members, you've had a chance to take a look at it. Do you have any suggested revisions or questions about it? And if not, may we ask that it come forward on the consent agenda at our next meeting? All right.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Now, item H4, Dr. Ramirez, classified job descriptions for family engagement.
Good evening, Board President Parker, Board, again, welcome, as with others. Wanted to bring this to your attention. Dr. Mora was not able to be here, but I believe we've provided some background on this job family, this set of job descriptions. So in short, I'd just like to point out that what we're attempting to do here is to further implement and support the work of that we started a few years ago now with our parent and family engagement framework. We are now exploring what type of staffing, infrastructure, how do we solidify those components, and this is an opportunity to do that. You may notice that the fiscal impact is really not a factor at this point. This is simply to approve job families that that work well at the site and district level. And it's also, moving forward, could be a good opportunity to ensure that there's consistency and coherence throughout our district as we engage in more conversations and actions having to do with parent engagement. It is, and we'll briefly touch on it a bit later, but it is one of the state priorities that's called out and clearly articulated in LCFF and LCAP specifically. So this is, I'll leave it open to any thoughts, recommendations, questions pertaining to the job descriptions and what you see in front of you.
All right, board members?
I just have a
Dr.
question.
Reed?
I think it's great that we're moving forward and that the plan is developing and we're really having more parent engagement. My assumption that it's the increase of the parent engagement that's been going on that has precluded this next step? And is there somebody filling the role currently?
So in our last iteration of the LCAP, we did set aside, we did move forward with funds for a family engagement specialist at the district level. That has been supported that way. What we're finding is that principals and site-based teams are now having more conversations around how do they continue to support these services at their site, knowing that district capacity from one person or even a team of people might be limited when it comes to actually being a consistent presence and support for schools themselves, especially when you're looking at a very wide range of services, right, for elementary or preschool versus elementary versus a junior high or high school. So this is just an attempt to provide different opportunities for site leaders and site teams to be able to point out some potential job classifications that they may be interested in supporting through their site-based funds.
Ms. Sims-Moten.
Would this be 3 new positions, or is this just?
So the district level right now, it would split it into 2 different positions with a bit of a different focus for each one, and then the site-based, the school site would just be the one, and so we're calling it a job family because they all really center around some core functions, but they do so at a different capacity and a different level of reach.
Okay. And is there something currently like that right now? Is this actually new that we're creating?
So this is actually new. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Reed?
And I just wanted to clarify, there are other positions that certainly support parent engagement, but in terms of family engagement shaped this way, this would be new.
Okay, thank you.
So I just have a question. And currently, we're working with community groups that are parent involvement through dialogue with Just Communities, Parents Who Need Us. So how do those overlap? Are those supporting this? How is that?
It's a great question. All along, we've certainly supported sites in making those decisions. What we want to do is ensure that we are also creating coherence within our district. There are some offerings that we have engaged in, such as the parent-school partnership, family literacy, Latino family literacy project. So there will be some core offerings that we will support with, as well as other sort of activities. But we have all along supported sites in making decisions around existing partnerships they may have, but we want to just continue to provide our internal support to be able to support along the way, both at the district and school level.
Ms. Capps?
Yeah, can you just walk me through how a district, I'm not doubting, but how a district, someone who works at the district is actually able to engage with parents on a regular basis, just because I know so much of it is face-to-face and drop-offs and things like that. I mean, that's a big task to be stationed here, but in charge of ensuring that there's active communication with parents.
So a couple of points to that. All along this, for the last few years, especially when as we've engaged in conversations around LCAP, we've tried to really talk about it as a continuum of services. So what we've tried to do is begin to clarify the difference between parent communication, parent contact, and parent engagement. And I know it may seem like wordplay, but it's really not. We would have to get into a broader discussion around the framework itself and how we've tried to identify certain core functions along each one of the age spans, from early childhood all the way on through high school. But specific to these are a core of it would be delivering parent workshops around some very specific curricula. And right now we have two. So I'll give you an example. We supported, just in the last 2 years, I'll call out two specific ones. We just supported Cleveland, a parent group of approximately 20 parents went through the Parent School Partnership, and that was something that was that was through the district. So that was a series of, I believe it was 15 weeks that the parents went through that experience. 15 different evenings. So it's pretty intensive, working with parents all along, communicating, and they all reached a culminating project that was to support initiatives happening at the school. So that's one example. Last year, and most recently, we had Monroe that went through the family literacy project, and Washington is going through that now. So it's not that we are expecting to have parents come to us. Quite the opposite. It's about a centralized person being able to outreach and be there. But in terms of the day-to-day comings and goings and supports, you're absolutely right. This is why we wanted to extend the job families to reach school sites. So if they want to move in that direction, they have that opportunity to do so.
Great, thank you.
Ms. Sims-Moton. And I just have one additional question just regard to budgeting. So we think this is going to be long-term, and so we have the funding that's going to sustain these positions that since they are new, or?
At this point, we're not advocating for a particular rollout or design. This is just simply to approve job descriptions that we feel are aligned to the kind of work that we're engaged with, and can also serve to coordinate services and coordinate external partnerships that would make it more accessible to families and parents to be able to, for lack of a better word, be a one-stop shop for some parents to be able to have now a wider array of services, because we know that it can be very confusing to go into different spaces to find information or to even discover that the kind of challenges you might be experiencing, there might be some outreach opportunities for you.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Reed?
So what I was wondering is, from the feedback that you've been getting from the parents, is that how you're sort of framing forward your curriculum development around issues that are going on currently?
It is, and we actually, years ago, and maybe it will be an opportunity in the near future to revisit the framework and what kind of work has gone into that. The previous board had a few opportunities to hear from Dr. Mora specifically, but we aligned our district framework to the California framework, and we really tried to do our best to honor past practices, partnerships, going all the way back to Thrive and the West Side project. And so those were opportunities that existed and that have been historical, using the MALDIF curriculum, the partnership that existed between UCSB, McKinley, and Harding over on the West Side. I mean, this is really an evolution of all of that. So it's been through feedback. There have been tools delivered and developed. This has gone through DLAC. It's gone through ELACs. So we're really working to ensure that we're being reflective in that process, and sites are developing their own plans with their school site councils, ELACs, and parent groups to develop curriculum and opportunities that the parents feel that they need. BETA, things like that are part of it because they call for greater access for parents into the system.
Thank you, Dr. Ramirez. All right, I will note that this really is, I appreciate Ms. Sims-Moon's question, because this is really about the job descriptions, and we're not committing any funding to it at this point, knowing
Correct.
especially that we are having a more restrictive funding environment, and we'll need to be making some trade-offs, and especially that the school sites have less and less funding. So with board members' approval, we could bring this forward on a consent agenda in the near future.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll note that we're running about half an hour behind schedule at this point. We have 2 more items on the report discussion agenda. First up is Vision of Instructional Framework for Santa Barbara Unified School District. Mr. Matsuoka.
For expediency, let's just go straight to the Word doc, and we can skip the slide deck.
Okay.
Because I've now presented this, I think, 3 times to different groups, and I find that the data on this sheet is really the story. So it was through the special ed listening meetings that this gradually unfolded, and boy, about 4 meetings in, things just started to click for me, and click in a really sort of like, whoa, we have some issues to work on. So I asked my team to create some data. So if you'll scroll down, Brian, pause there. We're over-identifying English language learners as special education students. The data, I mean, the line that, 2 lines jump out. So our district enrollment in special ed is 13%. The national stat on that is supposed to be around 10%. Now, I don't know that we'll ever get to 10%, but we should not be near 13%. And part of that is because, look at that line, the percent of ELs in special education, we're at 45% of our special ed students are ELs. That's, there's just no way to say, wow, that we just need to address that. It should not be that high. What should it be? You know, I can't quote you a goal or a number. I just know that if 1 out of every 2 of special ed students are identified as ELs, we need to support our EL students as English language learners around literacy. In fact, you talk to our teachers, they see their English language learners, they know they're smart, they know they can learn, but we have to help them overcome the language barrier. There are 2 disability codes that are over-identified in SLD, which is ironic. It's a specific learning disability. It's almost a catch-all for if a student is struggling. So it's not very specific. We've described quite a few of our students as that. And then the one that's relevant to literacy is speech-language impairment. And we believe those numbers are high. Like, so if a student is struggling with language, it gets coded as a special ed student around speech-language impairment. This is just my opinion at this point. I think kids are learning how to speak in English and how to read. And it isn't that they have a language impairment. And, you know, I've been testing this data off so many groups. Everybody who's seen this, people who've worked in the district for decades, they nod their head and they go, we've known about this, and actually we've seen the data, but we need to start taking action. So there's a couple of diagrams about a framework, and this is going to come back to you at various levels. So I apologize that the diagram got a little jumbled when it gets translated to PDFs. So this is an RTI visual. It's a response to intervention. And whether we stay with RTI or there's another more recent version called multi-tiered systems of support, it's the same idea. It's like, how do we support kids where they're at? And we need to focus on our Tier 1 instruction. Well, actually, Tier 2 is interventions as well. But Tier 1 are all those words: Common Core, literacy, English language learner support. That should be inside of every classroom, especially our elementary classrooms. Now, Tier 2 is intervention. So when a student is struggling, what supports do we have above and beyond, you know, the base foundation of instruction? And what's interesting in this room, the second meeting with teachers, when I asked, so what's our interventions like across our district? There was a bit of a, I would say, a reaction that we don't have a consistent framework for interventions. And then when I asked the English language learner question, there just was an audible response from the group. It's like, it's been a problem for a while. So if you look at this next diagram, it's a visual. of the dynamic going on in our district. So if you're an EL student, they're being sent to special ed. They're not staying in the Tier 1 classroom. And then if you don't have a Tier 2 layer, our students are just moving right through that because it's kind of inconsistent, and they end up in special education. So we have parts of our special education program where our special ed staff are killing themselves to support our students, and it's because the gen ed side of our work has got some holes. And we've got to fix that, or our problems in special education will continue. And we've been discussing this in cabinet now for probably 2 months. When we finally constructed these diagrams, everybody looked at it and said, that's what's going on. So we present this as a first glimpse of an instructional problem and then a vision for the future. We've got to stop those two big arrows. And that's, okay, we can't wave a magic wand at our level and say, okay, stop. It's going to take a concerted effort. But we now have to work on the communication around this so that every teacher, every staff member in our district understands this picture. Because when we start putting some, policies in place, some administrative leadership moves, we want people to understand why we're doing that we're not trying to be mean, but we're trying to support our kids. So questions, comments?
Do we have any public speakers on this?
Oh, were there speakers?
No, okay. Yes, Ms. Capps.
I would just love an example of an intervention. I mean, just for my,
I'll turn to
just
my.
even a very general one. I just would love to understand what we're lacking in some slightly more specific. Thanks.
Obviously, every situation is different, every student is different, but one that comes to mind is let's for instance say that a student that is coming in at first grade, right, hasn't mastered the foundational beginnings of literacy, right? By the time that you get to about mid first grade, there should be some degree of even fluency, especially according to our new standards. So the question now becomes, how do we set foot into that space? How does the teacher respond? How does the school respond? What do we put in place? So here's what and I'm just making a gross generalization here. What we may find is that there may be instances where that child is taken from that class to be given what is believed to be foundational. And that is the right intent. What is inadvertently happening, however, is that when that child comes in, the rest of instruction didn't stop for those kids, right? They continued. So when they come in, now we may have exacerbated a problem. And I'm just referring to one particular gap that may exist, and a common way in which sometimes we choose to intervene. This is not assuming that, of course, that there are special needs in place. This is simply an assumption on a student that may have a gap and that we're trying to intervene with. Just a learning gap based on skills that they have not acquired. And there are a number of examples that can play out in math, in literacy, and across different grade levels. So it's not just what we choose to adopt as a means of intervention, it's how it plays in concert with the rest of a day, the rest of a school year, and we have to be very mindful of creating clarity around that.
So just to follow up on that, Ms. Capps, I'll give an example. Like we know that our high schools have these seminar or special times. It can be partly a time management piece where you're providing opportunities for tutorials during the school day. It can be a curriculum that maybe we don't have, or time that we don't have, people that we don't have. So those are specific types of intervention. Dr. Reed?
I was just going to say that I think with the new LCAP evaluative plans that are coming forward, that we'll be able to really see where the challenges are. So it actually will fall really nicely with the framework that you've come up with to uncover the challenges that are out there. And I appreciate the simplicity, but the really challenging, you know, the challenge is there for us. And thank you.
I will add in that, well, a couple of things. One is, you know, this has been a recognized issue for a long time, and yet systemically we haven't been able to change it. I know that systems are a strength of yours, but we will, you know, there'll be some really specific things that need to happen and be put in place to see this particular needle move. When we're talking about special ed, it is it's a very complex topic. And I want to be careful, especially when we're talking about 10% versus 13%. You know, the general public may look at that and go, it's, you know, it's not that different. As a board member, I'm always worried that, you know, first of all, that we're finding all the students that are appropriate. But then, of course, it's absolutely key that we not over-identify too. So I just want to be careful as we speak about it. And then just keeping in mind that it's complex. I think that you have keyed in on a really specific and glaring issue. But I know that when you were visiting people and talking to people, I'm sure you were hearing a broad range of issues, and that this is one that you're tackling now. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that.
You know, the goal is not a percent identification. The goal is to serve every kid, every student where they're at. And I believe that 13% will drop, but my goal isn't to get us down to 10%. My goal is so that students can read at grade level, that they can access the A to G content when they get to high school, that we're supporting the growth of all students. And so I think the numbers will take care of themselves as we solve the instructional supports for all students.
And with that, we will move on to our last item, H6, report and discussion on the LCAP plan for 2017-20. Design and process, Dr. Ramirez.
Well, thank you once again, Ms. Parker. So you already have a narrative that, thank you, that will shed light on this, and so I'll try to move along as briskly. The challenge with this was that you know, we wanted to familiarize our new board members to a process which isn't just a broad process. There are elements of that, but there's specific ways in which this has played here in Santa Barbara, which have been very successful for us, and we want to capitalize on that as well. So just as a way of background, this just gives you some information relating to the purpose behind LCAP and how it really stems from changes that were made to funding formula back a few years ago in 13-14. I did want to highlight again those 8 state priorities. That's how annual goals are really shaped, and also explaining how supplemental and concentration funds are expended. Now, in our case, we are not a concentration district, so it's important to note that for the public, that our additional source of revenue comes from supplemental. And also, that last bullet, explaining and clarifying how proposed uses of these funds will support services that are principally directed towards and are effective in meeting the goals for its unduplicated pupils. So a simple interpretation of that is we are really trying to ensure that those supplemental funds are targeting supports and systems that are going to help raise the achievement, the wellness, and the overall achievement level for our EL learners, our English learners, our socioeconomically disadvantaged, and our homeless and foster youth. Primarily, principally, not necessarily exclusively, but principally. Just an overview of LCAP design. You heard Dr. Van Leuven earlier talk about different plans being in different places. Well, we have done a lot of work in that regard. Our LEA plan, Ms. Parker, you heard me mention the LEA plan and give follow-ups on that. that's something that has become more aligned. Our updates have become aligned to LCAP. Our LCAP is really strongly referencing and trying to operationalize our strategic plan. And also, what we've done just in the last year is that we've brought our single plans now into greater alignment, and hopefully it's something that you begin to notice more when the spring comes around. So that some of the goal setting really, you'll see it reflected at the district level and then mirrored at the site level. But basically, in the past, our current design is really around 5 broad goals, and you see them listed there. And there are elements of this, of course, that are very much aligned to elements in our strategic plan. Now, for 17-20, so it's again a 3-year plan, our objective is to refine those goals to become more measurable and allow for improved progress monitoring. Why is that important? Because the state framework the state template is changing. Now, in this case, it's a change for the better. It's probably going to be, and from the look of it, it's going to be much more user-friendly. And the other big change is that we're going from a rolling 3-year plan to a static 3-year plan. So now, when we talk about 2017 through 20, that's the time frame that we're really looking to identify a specific annual achievement level or goals that give us that incremental growth, hopefully more than incremental, but the growth from year to year, 17, 18, 18, 19, out to 1920. So the design of it really is helping us to be more focused on the goals and not just the plan. And that's important to note, because staff will tell you that we don't want to spend all of our time in the planning phases. We want to get to the doing, and we want to focus all our energy there. So again, just an overview of the current template. You have the sections listed there, and a revised template. And again, you can just even at a glance see that there are some good changes that just make it so much more friendly for the user, for the end user. Not just you as a board that needs to make sense of all of this and be able to speak to it, but really for the community to be able to have a greater opportunity to engage and really find clarity in that document, because it can become very intensive and pretty complex. So we will revisit this as we move forward, but right now it's just an attempt to give you an overview. Finally, you have it in your narrative. It's a bit more articulated, and there's some greater detail there. But we've traditionally had phases of development, and it's just broken up into 5 phases. Dr. Dradi and I did a lot of work together last year, but especially in his transition, to make sure that we successfully talked about how to move that forward. I feel confident about the team that we have, not just in our ed services, but as a district office, working with the site leaders to move this forward. And so what you see here are those phases, just at a glance. Right now, the phase that we're currently in is that first one, the annual updated needs assessment. We need to make sure that we begin to provide for the community, not just the metrics, but a general overview of how we've done and how our actions have made a difference and the things that have been funded have made a difference for students and for families. So we're working on that, and we're really getting gear. We've already done a lot of planning, and we're going to have something more concrete by January. So with that, I want to just open it up for questions, and feel free to ask away.
Thank you very much for that overview. Any comments at this point? You'll be seeing a lot of this process over the coming years, but certainly over the coming upcoming months. Ms. Sims-Moten.
The only comment I had is that I appreciate that it's now going to be static and you can actually tell, as opposed to rolling, what would we do? So that'll be so much easier to do that and to understand.
Absolutely. We feel really fortunate. The state has taken a lot of input from just a number of stakeholders, and that was one thing that really came across. So we're going to be receiving more information ourselves to make sure that we understand those nuances, but that's a very well-received, it may seem subtle, but it really isn't for us. It's really a big change that will help us be able to give clarity year to year.
Yeah, very much so. Thank you. Any other comments? All right, thank you so much, Dr. Ramirez.
Thank you.
And at this point, we're at the end of the action agenda. Item I is returning to consent items, which we don't have any. J, coming events. Anything people can think of over the next, because we will not meet again until the new year. Okay. Future agenda items, anything to add at this point? And I will go ahead and pop it forward to M before we get to L, just because I want to note that as of tonight, our next board meeting will actually be on January 9th, our special meeting to have the interviews with the candidates for our open seat. And, but going back to item L, at this point, with my board's permission, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.